Count us off, Thomas.
Yeah, he's got it.
3, 2, 1. Start beatboxing.
3 and the 4 and the.
Did it. I didn't want to do this, but he did it. All right. And when I got the fucking topic today. All right, come on, man. All right,
cool. Welcome, everyone. Talk About Trades, podcast number 3.
Nice. Podcast number 3. Today's topic, the Texas criminal justice system. Our guest today, Giese, holds a bachelor's in behavioral science that he got from the University of Houston Clear Lake. Also did a little stint on the inside, so we got some good first-hand perspective there. Also, guest, Dr. Layne Dittmann, holds a doctorate in criminal justice and is currently an assistant professor for the Department of Security Studies and Criminal Justice at Angelo State University.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a mouthful.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, but that's heavy. We got some heavy hitters today.
This ain't no just like willy nilly all jokey about everything.
No.
Bullshit podcast. This is actually real shit.
I love it.
Yeah. So, welcome. Fucking thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I just shared it with the Facebook land, so hopefully some people tune in.
Cool.
Via Twitch, but otherwise this will be available on YouTube later. So
nice.
Yeah. So why don't y'all just kind of introduce yourselves? We'll start with Mr. Layne. Kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself, history, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I'm Layne Dittmann, from Houston, Texas. Played in a band with these two gentlemen, as a matter of fact, for going on 15 years.
15, 20, yeah.
15, 20 years. Grown up together, had a great time. A lot of stories to be told or untold.
Yeah.
That's for other podcasts, that's for sure.
But, so I got my PhD from Sam Houston State University in criminal justice, and I now work, as Thomas mentioned, at Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas, if any of you guys know where that's at. But I teach courses out there for border and homeland security, including transnational organized crime, international drug trafficking, critical infrastructure protection, emergency management, history of terrorism, things that are more related to the national security perspective as opposed to strictly criminal justice. But I did do a lot of my research on prison culture and particularly contraband. And the presence of contraband in the inmate economy and how that operates in the microcosm of prison.
Okay.
That's part of me.
Nice. Neil?
My name is Neil Giese. I was born in Houston, Texas. Grew up in Conroe. Nobody has any idea where that's at either. But Texas born and raised. I grew up in a single-parent household. So, my mom, she struggled, and even as a child, I kind of knew that she was struggling. So I'd trying to help out around the house.
Right.
And it's kind of funny because, not funny, but ironic that, I had the blessings of having my grandparents around me when I was really, really young.
Yeah.
And my other friends, they didn't have grandparents, right? And I couldn't appreciate that as a child, but as I get older, I'm like, I'm just so grateful.
That influence.
Well, I mean, now that I'm out of prison, I'm grateful for everything.
Sure.
But back then as a child, growing up, I didn't know what it was to be a man. Nobody taught me those things, right? And these are important lessons that aren't taught.
Yeah.
And public education leaves it on the families to provide that information, right?
Sure.
But in today's society, we're so busy working 40 hours a week that we don't have the energy or the wherewithal to teach it properly, so it's left to public educations. Mm-hmm. So I just want to ask one question. This is my opening question.
Yeah.
Is that in what grade were you taught about prison? Anybody?
I can't recall.
I want to say 4th or 5th grade DARE. They talked about drugs, which I didn't know anything about. I just thought, the people down the street had a lot of friends, and they always stopped by.
These guys are real popular.
Yeah. They're very popular.
Yeah, no, I don't know
probably
anything
4th
about
or 5th grade. And it was through the DARE program, which a complete failure as a program,
Yes.
by the way. But yeah, no, probably 4th.
But so they hit you at 4th or 5th grade, so we're you were too young, so it went over your head anyways.
Right. I just knew I didn't want to go there.
Drugs aren't cool. Stay in school.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the point that I want to make is that, there's a thing called the school to prison pipeline, right? And Dr. Dittmann can contest that 70% of those that are incarcerated did not graduate high school. So we're talking about guys that have maybe a 6th or 7th, maybe an 8th or 9th grade education, which means they have an 8th or 9th grade vocabulary, which means they have an 8th or 9th grade understanding of the world and life, which is very dangerous. You know, you don't. That's why we don't let kids have guns, right? Because they don't understand how dangerous it is.
Right.
And so I was 16 years old, and I was messing around with drugs, and a robbery went bad, and I ended up going to prison at 19 years old. And I stayed there for 20 years. So when they let me out when I was 40, I had spent over half my life in prison. You know, so that was my norm.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Like sitting with you guys now, I'm like it's hard for me to believe like I even went through it. You know, and it was like so traumatic that it's hard for me to like even convey what it's like to go through. So just to help us get an understanding of what I'm trying to express, like, what do y'all know about prison? Tell me what you know about prison.
Don't drop the soap. I'm being honest. That sounds dumb, but that's what, you know what I mean?
Well, in case
that was the thing that like scared us straight.
No, yeah, for real. Yeah.
I mean, did y'all ever watch that show Oz back in the day, HBO?
You know what? I remember it being on. Never really watched it, but I got the gist. Again, don't drop the soap.
You know, there's that. But yeah, I mean, obviously there's like a gang-like culture, and that's pretty much it. Like it's you got to join a group, and all the groups are kind of against each other.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just
if
like
you're gonna survive, yeah. Like I'll put it like this, Neil. I never wanted to go there. Let's put it like that. Like I feel like if I was to go there, even now today, I'm gonna get chewed up and spit out. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna have to become a completely different person than who I am right now, sitting before you.
You'd have to be an idiot to like choose to go to prison. You know?
Right.
So the ideas that we get is they're from movies, because when guys get out of prison, they don't talk about prison. They don't want to talk about it. You know, they don't want to share that. They don't want to be vulnerable. You know, about how scared they were going in. And like when I went in, man, I weighed like $165, and I had old schools telling me, youngster, I don't know if you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm doing like 500 push-ups every day. I'm like, man, I'm shaking my teeth. You know, I'm enjoying them because I know I don't think I'm gonna have any when I get out. You know what I mean? Like my brain is going through every worst case scenario you can think of. So I'm thinking, man, where am I gonna get a piece of steel? I'm gonna have to stab somebody because ain't nobody gonna rape me.
Right.
But the truth is like everybody. I mean, if we all ganged up on, if 5 guys gang up on you,
No, what are you gonna
that's
do?
a wrap.
What are you gonna do?
Who hasn't seen American History X?
Oh goddamn.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they throw movies at society like that, and so we get an idea. We get these concepts from a movie script
Sure.
that do not relate or translate to the actual reality of prison, right? So
is it worse or is it close?
it depends. So it's kind of you have to go through like the history of prisons, right?
Yeah.
So even before there was prison, it was slavery in Texas. I mean, it goes all the way back to the slave days, and the old plantations, the slavery belt in Texas, that's where state prisons are still located at in Texas.
Come on.
The same land. And if you go out there digging, you're going to find, just like out there in Sugar Land,
Yep.
they found that prisoner graveyard.
Yep.
And you know, and the only way you can do that to somebody is if you don't recognize them as a human being. You know what I mean? They're disfranchised. The only way you can treat somebody cruelly, or I mean, it takes a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not an ideology, but a total disregard for human life.
Well, yes. So prisoners are not even considered humans, right? So you
Yes.
humanize them.
So it's
this
ignorance,
group of people,
right? So it's ignorance, right? So out of ignorance, they're cruel to other human beings, which in turn affect those human beings, and they can die from it, or they can also go out and hurt others, because people that are abused, either physically, you know, verbally, sexually, or whatever, become abusers,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So we go all the way back from the slave days, and then after the Civil War, slavery was abolished. That's what I was taught in school. And then they started implementing prisons. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was like an explosion, right, with the war on drugs. So it went from like 5 units to over 100 units.
Well over 100.
And it grew so big and so fast that they lost a lot of their integrity. Because back in the day, there was to be a man or to be when you were locked up, you were given certain duties to perform, expectations, right? And it grew so big, it's kind of got watered down to where there's so many inmates that nobody cares, or like there's too many of them, and the officers get like desensitized.
Sure.
So when you have like a real problem, like even like a medical issue, and you go up and ask for help, they don't hear you.
They're not acknowledging.
When you go up and say that you're being raped, they say, "Well, go back and do your time." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the attitude, but that attitude comes from us feeling justified into judging another human being for breaking the law.
Right.
You know, and it goes back to biblical days, because penitentiary comes from the word penitent.
Right.
And you know, so we're talking about like an ethos of, you know, you're breaking divine law, so you deserve whatever you get. And with like the soap deal, who cares about murderers and rapists murdering and raping each other?
Right.
Nobody.
No,
I didn't. I used to when I was 16. I just got my driver's license, and I would drive on 45, and I would see the holiday unit, and you could see inmates. And at 16 years old, just like I just had movies in my head, and I'm like, whoa. I'm like, what the heck? They're like one football field away from 45. Like, those are murderers and rapists. And I actually got scared. And I sped up. And then I forgot about it. Just completely forgot about it. And I continued abusing drugs and hanging out with the wrong crowd. And one thing led to another.
And boom, you're in there.
And now I'm in there.
Yeah.
And
You probably did intake at Holiday, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah. And it's kind of the only reason, like, I kind of gravitated towards the old schoolers that had been locked up for like a long time. And they were like, youngster, they go, look, they said, don't join a gang, go to education, and don't worry about what's on that television. That was my 3 rules that I lived by.
Yeah.
Because you're going to fight over that television. And if you join a gang, then you end up being told what to do.
Yeah, you're gonna fight. Just you got orders or something.
And so I'm gonna go off of Dr. Dittmann's contraband dissertation.
Yeah.
The gangs run the contraband, and they're serious about it.
Oh yeah.
Like, they will take over. They will get you out of the way because they want to have the power and control that the contraband system creates.
Right.
So the whole fact that the contraband gives you the power, because prison is an artificial environment that has nothing to do with being a successful citizen out here.
Right.
Nothing. You don't get to decide when you eat. You don't get to decide when you sleep. You have no control over your life. None. You're told everything what to do, and you just go, like sheep or like cattle.
Sure.
And so you go from making like 300 decisions a day in there to 3,000 out here. And there's no way to prepare for that.
Especially after, several years of institutionalization. Yeah.
And I mean,
and one more time, Neil, please. My name is Layne.
Oh,
Doctor.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm used to being in a
Please call me Layne. Or shithead or whatever else you want to call me.
I look to you like as a professor, like a mentor, somebody. I'm sorry.
It's hard.
No,
It's actually hard to see him that way.
Oh,
Like you
for
said,
y'all, yeah.
We grew up with this guy,
Yeah.
right? No, wait. All of a sudden, you're a doctor? Man, kiss my ass.
Well, I mean, so
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like 2 electives away from my master's degree, so I know what it takes.
No doubt, and much respect to
Yeah.
both of y'all, really,
Yeah.
because I did see again, growing up with him, and seeing the time and effort it took for him to achieve that, and that was him on the outside in the free world. So now you're
Right.
telling me you got an opportunity to do that on the inside, where you just got through explaining to us where all your personal freedoms are essentially stripped away from you, and you were able to achieve a bachelor's in behavioral science from the University of Houston in Clear Lake. Like, that's amazing.
Only because I decided to do something the best I could with my circumstances. That's
Well,
it.
sure, yeah.
That was it.
No, dude.
But I had no idea what education was going to do for me.
Sure.
None whatsoever.
What has it done for you, you think?
Oh wow. So I lived like you end up like living vicariously through books. You know what I mean? It's an escape. You know, it's a way to maintain your sanity in an insane place. And just to give you a description of like the day rooms, everybody's got on a different schedule. Like everybody doesn't turn the lights off at night and everybody goes to sleep because you got 3 different shifts of workers. You know, so you just have to shove earplugs in your ears and wrap socks around your eyes and try to go to sleep. And so you're always being bombarded with distractions. And all I had were the books and paper. I didn't have a laptop. I didn't have access to the internet, you know, to research my papers or anything. But what education gave me was confidence, because they gave me a goal. They told me what information that I needed, and then they told me what I needed to execute. A 6-page paper, 8, you know. And so I just started learning to teach myself, basically, because I was never taught how to study in school.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the things that I learned, like to study, I started getting angry because I was like, why didn't they teach me this back then? Why didn't I know these things? Like why do you wait until college, where colleges are businesses? They make money. They're for profit to get a real education. Why do I got to pay for a real education when public education should have gave that to me?
They want to hold the good stuff.
Yeah.
So they can sell it to you.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it, Cody.
Yeah.
Which is insane, but it allows me to. So I'm in the humanities, and so what the humanities does is we basically delve off into the sacred teachings or the sacred writings of other cultures. So like I'm an explorer. I'm not a conqueror. I go and I listen to your music, the language that you speak, and I try and understand. I try and empathize with who you are as a human being. You know
That's
what
a
I mean?
humanities study.
Yes. And so it gives me a greater appreciation as a whole, instead of realizing that, oh, well, I'm a Dallas fan, so therefore I got to hate Houston fans. Or, you know what I mean? And that's what because we have a tribalistic
It
mentality.
gives you that empathy then, I guess, maybe?
Most
That
definitely.
ability to
Yeah.
try to put the shoe on you know, what does it say, the shoe on the foot or whatever?
Shoe on the other foot.
Shoe on the other foot.
Walk a mile in somebody
there
else's
you go,
shoes.
walk
yeah.
a mile in someone else's
Yeah.
shoes, whatever.
But,
see where they're coming from.
yeah. I mean, I got like a million things going off in my head right now because I get kind of antsy sometimes from the like overstimulus. Like when I first got out, they took me to academy. And brother, like you take it for granted, right?
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed. Like there was just so much. Like my eyes were trying to focus on everything at once.
And just seeing everything
Yeah.
before you.
And I had to reach over.
Wow.
I had to tap my pop on the leg, and I was just like, "Hang on, give me a minute."
Yeah.
And I
You
just
sit down.
Yeah.
Take it all in.
yeah. And they don't tell you about that when you're getting out.
Just amazing.
Overload.
Or
basically.
or how to budget, like your finances. I wasn't taught that. Oh well, 40% of my paycheck needs to go towards rent, and if I'm paying more than that, well then I need to get a smaller
I
house.
thought it was 33.3%.
That's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just do it.
No, but you're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
You know what I mean? But there weren't even like
There's like 18 different types of shirts and 18 different colors, and you're like, wait a minute, what the hell is
Yeah.
going on?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so like even
I
like
can
But I
see that
also
for
wonder.
sure.
I also would like to touch on this though, Neil. I feel like because of the access you had to education, I think you were better prepared, even though they didn't maybe give you some of those other things, like you said, some of the stuff you just can't prepare for. Perhaps it's just like out of the frying pan into the fire. You're just gonna get overstimulated, considering how they've relegated your life and regulated it to what you said, where you can eat, sleep, all that stuff. But the fact that you had access to the education, you were able to get that education. I feel like that helped prepare you for, I guess, for lack of a better word, reintegration into society. You know, and I mean, like, I feel like you might be almost even like a poster child for look what the prison system can do. It has the potential to reform and rehabilitate and this, that, and the other. But I can't help but feel like it's the exception, maybe. Not the
Definitely
rule,
one of very few.
You know,
you know.
I'm sorry, and even in
You're
your
so
case,
right now.
and even in
Yeah.
your case, it still probably wasn't even perfect. You know, like I don't think it was an easy road to path to rehabilitation. I think there were some bumps along the way, some things that the criminal justice system may or may not have done to try to booby trap you, to try to curtail you from even succeeding. Like, you had to overcome these obstacles in order to succeed. So even though you had access to it, you still wasn't a clear, straight path.
Is there any
You know?
is there any classes that you took to like deinstitutionalize, like to get ready for the real world? Did they teach you how to do anything?
It was every class, because the teachers don't go through officer training. They're not taught, to not trust that all inmates are liars and cheaters and not to be trusted. And they're not. It's basically like an us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which leads to, a superiority complex, to where, like, I'm not going to let you win at all. Like, even when you're right, I'm going to lie. And I'm going to get my fellow officer to lie to back me up. You're never going to win, ever. And so, yeah, like, so, I don't know, like, my awakening, so to speak, was like when I realized, like, wait a minute, I'm, like, part of the whole, and I felt like society let me down. You know what I mean? But, and like my parents, like, we all do the best of what we have to work with, right?
Right.
My mom dropped out of high school, so education wasn't important to her, so she didn't have the tools to pass it down to me. I can't be mad at that, but it helps me understand why. You know what I mean?
Right.
And my mom's great. I love her. I mean, she's awesome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the man I am without her.
Shout outs to mothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And and my dad, now we have a great relationship. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he was absent for so long, I was just trying to, it leaves a hole in your life. Like I was talking about, like, how to be a man, like, nobody taught me specifically.
Yeah.
And, like, they don't teach you that in school either.
No, they're not.
Or to be a woman, or to be a productive member of society, or whatever vernacular you choose to use these days, right? But I just woke up one day and I saw guys suffering, and they were angry, and I understood why, because I was angry too. And so it helped me focus to help others. So I started helping guys get into school. I started helping guys get their GED. Due to budget cuts, they did away with college entry exams, where basically, like, so there was guys that got their GED, but their EA scores, well, let me explain this real quick. So when you first go to prison,
Okay.
you take an entry exam, right?
Right.
So they wake you up 3 o'clock in the morning, and you go into this freezing classroom, because remember that there's no AC in prison, right? So you go from 90 degrees at night to 65 degrees. So you're in there freezing, taking this test, and then they send you back out. Well, when your EA scores come in, that determines what vocations you're allowed to take, because if you don't have like a 10th grade level,
Right.
you can't take a computer class. You know what I mean?
They're just not even going to bother with
because you don't have the comprehension.
Yeah, they don't want to catch you up. Spend
Right.
time and money to catch you up.
Right. So I scored 12s across the board, so I was able to just automatically take the college entry exam and get into college. But there was a bunch of guys in there that their EAs weren't high enough
Yeah.
to take the college entry exam.
Right.
So a bunch of us college guys got together and we were like, you know what? Let's make a program.
Y'all tutored them.
It was called Head Smart.
Yeah.
And I was good at math, so I came up with the math curriculum.
Nice.
And I told the guys from the get-go, I'm like, I'm taking away from my time, and I'm not getting paid, but I want the same for you that I have for myself.
Right.
And if I do the work, like if I give you homework and I got to grade it, I expect you to do your homework. And I just told them, if you fail, it's on you. Has nothing to do with me.
What was the response? Did you get a lot of people who are engaged, or
We love discipline. We love a challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
What else they gonna do?
yeah, and it was so rewarding, right? And so, but what happened was I was helping people write grievances, and the administration got word of it, right? And I became a target. So in 2017, they planted screwdrivers in my cell.
Come on.
And
I'm sorry. 2017.
yeah.
About what month? I'm just curious.
Oh shoot! Why you put me on the spot like
I
that?
don't mean
bro?
that. My bad. No, but it was 2017. Okay, you don't. It doesn't
I mean,
matter
I got-
what month.
I got
The only reason why I was saying the month is just because I'm trying to relate. When people tell me things that happened in their life,
Oh.
I try to relate. Like,
that's how you're following?
Where was I? Well, where was I in 2017?
Oh.
About what point in time in my life? You know, you're getting
Okay.
screwdrivers planted in
Right.
your cell. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to detract. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No,
so
you're
so,
good.
So what? So you're helping people write grievances. Obviously, I don't know what to call them. Not the wardens, the prison guards. I guess they're not liking what you're doing. You're basically educating people,
Right.
and so they're trying to set you up.
Because so we were talking about poster boards for getting out of prison
Yeah.
and being a productive member of society.
Right. Yeah.
You have that avenue. Everybody can do that, but you have to stay in your lane, right? Because you're an inmate. And they just changed it back. So remember, it went from inmate to offender. Back, but they just recently changed it back to inmate,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So words have meaning and they have power.
No doubt.
So what does the word offender mean?
You created an offense, right?
So it was offensive,
Yeah.
like a smell, right? They're basically, somebody really smart and educated came up with a term for a piece of shit because that's what he felt. You know what I mean? And he's right. I was a piece of shit. I didn't care about anybody but myself. I did that. But when I went to prison, nobody talked to me about my crime. Nobody talked to me about the steps that I'm going to take to become the man that I should have been to not commit that crime.
It also implies that you're guilty.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
I mean, obviously, that should go, I guess, without saying. But, if
Yeah.
you're in prison, you're guilty. But what
But
what
not-
about all the people who aren't
not
guilty?
necessarily,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like, what
we
are people who were
Yeah.
falsely in prison?
Right.
So
right.
offenders, like,
I mean, in Shawshank Redemption, what does Red say? Oh yeah, of course, everybody. We're all.
Yeah, sure.
Innocent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good movie, by the way. But, it's...
Well, back to what you were saying. They planted the screwdrivers in your cell.
Yeah.
What do you think the purpose of that was? What was that?
because I was shaking the tree.
rocking the boat.
Yeah, I was causing tremors in their little balance because in prison, like, they might kill me one day, y'all. Like, seriously, because
Hope not.
they have it so easy in there because all they got to do is show up to work, do nothing, not care about anybody, take a key, open a door, and that's it. They don't have to do anything, and they get the same pay. You know what I mean? So, and the what's the recidivism rate right now in the state of Texas? 60-something?
Yeah, it's
64.
always floated around
Yeah.
60 to 70.
Yeah. So, if you go to a doctor, right, and...
Depending on how you measure it, after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years,
Yeah.
after release. But yeah, that's between 60 and 70%.
What, people who go back to prison after they get let out?
Yes.
Yeah, within a 2, 3, or 5 year period. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are different percentages.
Right.
So, if you go to a doctor and 65% of his patients don't make it,
Right.
are you going to keep going to that doctor?
No, yeah. He's definitely got a failing. Yeah.
But he still,
Dr. Death.
but he still has a license to be a doctor, right? Well, in our society, I don't get to choose my doctor when I'm sick,
Right.
and I look at crime as a sickness. I don't see good people or bad people. I see bad programming. The education that they were given.
Or bad circumstances, perhaps. Everybody
I
says
mean,
product of your environment, kind of a thing.
Well, I mean, there's 1,000 influences that contribute to our behavior every day. Nature,
You
nurture,
got your nature
familial,
nurture arguments. Yeah.
peer educate. Our peers.
Now the criminology fields are looking at biosocial research, which is the
What's that?
combination of nature, nurture, environment, and genetics,
Yes.
right? And that goes into a whole nother level of
Oh, no
questioning on,
shit.
hey man, you're genetically prone to be violent,
Or-
right?
Right,
Compared to
right.
me,
Yeah.
and I don't have those genes turned off,
Yeah.
right? So when we go to court, when we go to sentencing, right? We both committed the same crime. You're more prone to be violent once you're released. I am not, based upon our genetics. Do we put you in prison for longer than me? Because I have a better chance of getting out and being non-violent.
Sure.
Because your genetics are prone to be
Sure.
violent, right? Or is it the other way around?
Or so why does it have to be you're in prison longer? Why couldn't it be
Or
we need to get you in a certain type of program or rehabilitation?
right.
We
Well-
need to give you some more like listen.
so that's the
do you remember-
logic
do you
behind
remember- do you remember-
rehabilitation.
But do you remember that movie, A Clockwork Orange?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the part where he gets ended up in prison and they have his
Right,
eyes open and
yeah.
they're
Right,
like
right.
reprogramming this whole to where he literally has a physical aversion to committing an offense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not saying we're gonna go there, but what I'm saying is, but it's kind of sort of not necessarily.
I'm not trying to
broaching
take
that.
us on a tangent.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if we get to the point where we can prove,
Yeah.
with genetics, and genome, and look at it and go, wait a minute, this guy is turned on over here, 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 and here, and he's extremely violent compared to this person who doesn't have those genes turned on, and they're not extremely violent.
Right.
Well, should we give you more programming than me?
Right.
We both committed the same crime. We both made the bad decision.
Yeah.
The same bad decision. Right? So, and then it comes to sentencing. Well, are we going to put you away for longer than me or put me away longer than you? Because I wasn't prone to do that. I had the 100% conscious choice to make that decision, to commit that crime.
Right.
You, on the other hand, were genetically prone to do that.
But who also determines all that, right? Because, I mean, some of that has already been done, but that's not necessarily based on genetics, at least not in that sense, but on your skin color, if I dare say, right? So
well, let's not act like there's not disparity in sentencing.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people, they've already been doing that,
Right.
but just on that level, you know?
Right.
So
from a visual standpoint,
and that's
them
the
standpoint.
And that's the other thing too, is that what I got through saying was, and what you just got through saying right off the rip was, do we give you more time? I don't feel like there is any programs. I don't feel like there is any sort of, rehabilitation or something. Or can you give some? I know you, like I said, you had the path to education, so there is. But is that available to everyone?
From your experience,
You know?
Uh,
I mean, you got to take the test. You got to
words-
score so high, and then that determines.
Words have
But-
very specific meanings depending on the context, right?
Okay.
So they talk about rehabilitation. Well, that's makes me feel like I was properly habituated to begin with, right? But I wasn't taught about prison in school. I wasn't taught that we live in a nation of laws, right?
You
But-
knew right from wrong, but
True, but I didn't know the system.
right.
So I didn't have the tools to be habilitated, to actually be rehabilitated. To me, it's just a word game,
Okay.
right? But studies prove that the higher the education level, the lower the recidivism. Period.
Okay.
For every dollar that they put in to education, the state saves $5 on money to put guys back into prison,
Right.
right? Because they're smarter.
So it should. I mean, even on a financial standpoint, it makes sense.
It's a win-win.
Let's do. Yeah. So why
It's-
not? So why is it not there?
It's safer for society because my thing is this is like I didn't see guys as like that guy's he's a thief or he's a robber or he's shot somebody. I saw somebody as a son, a brother, a father, that we're all suffering because we're not out there. We dropped the ball. We're not out there providing for our families.
Now,
And as a man, you can agree that, and I'm not forcing you. You can disagree.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But as a man, being providers and being responsible is one of the top two things on the list of being a man. You know what I mean? Being a provider, being responsible. So those things are lacking. And I'm going to keep going back to that. I'm going to beat it like a dead horse because that's what's missing. And that's why prisons are as big as they are. And that's why they're staying as big as they are. Because we're trying to reform prisoners without a true understanding of what it takes, instead of going to schools and reforming our children. If we reform our schools, there'll be little reform needed in our prisons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
'Cause
nip it
it's-
in the bud early on.
and it's a loop effect. It's a cycle because guys that are, so many guys, like my father went to prison, and I didn't even know it until I was fixing to be sentenced.
Right.
I didn't even know it. So it's a topic that needs to be taught in every school.
I'm curious. What does that look like? So you say taught in every school. So is there maybe with health? When kids are going through puberty,
Yeah.
they have that little class. Is there should there be? I know there's not, but so then should there be a class that's like, hey, dude, y'all guys get out of here and y'all break some laws. These are what the consequences are. You know what I mean?
Or is it just teaching them the laws? Is that what you're saying?
So no, so you would have to be like, for instance, I actually have the curriculum,
Yeah.
which is I don't have it copyrighted yet, but Johnny Ward, who wrote. Let me just go ahead, give him a little shout out, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Johnny Ward wrote Gridlock while he was on the Ramsey unit, right? And he's one of them guys that just goes around, and he was like, "I'm trying to do this. I need your help." And so we all gave him a story, like our life experience in prison.
Right.
And so this is just a collection of stories to give people an idea of what it's like to be disenfranchised and to realize that, you know, we were slaves. Like even now I'm disenfranchised. I can't vote. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's certain things that I can't do, which, I mean, how long do I got to pay for that crime? You know, I've been doing the right thing for so many years. It's like, man, like let me make it.
Yeah,
you know,
they just write you off.
yeah, but that's the way the system is. But nobody's taking the microscope and actually seeing how the state is profiting off of slavery still to this day. You know, that's the reality. You know, if they would have told me that, you know, it's not just about being good and bad, but if you break this law, you're going to be a slave.
Yeah.
And every time you go through a security checkpoint, you're going to have to get butt naked, turn around, bend over, and spread your butt cheeks.
Jesus.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a rape victim,
It's
right?
humiliation.
Yeah, it's like a rape victim. You know, I've lost count. Like I'm totally desensitized. Like I could take my clothes off right now,
Yeah.
and I just don't care.
No, I
you
feel
know,
you. Yeah.
because but the first couple of times it was like
What the fuck?
so humiliating, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then when I first went to prison, it was not against the rules for women to be around. So we're in the showers, and there's a woman working the showers with a bunch of naked guys running around.
Right.
You know, it's insane. But some of the religious groups got together and they wrote some grievances and got it changed to where they can't do that now. And now when they do annual shakedowns, where you have to take all your property, like you have to, everything that you own, you have to be able to carry it down to the gym and sit it on a table, and an officer just goes through it.
Okay.
And that's also it's very disrespectful in how they handle our property. You know what I mean? And when you've lost everything, because the real punishment of prison is not the food, it's not, you know, not having the sex or the freedom, it's being away from our loved ones and losing that contact. You know, that's
so pictures.
the things that make us human. Yeah, those pictures that we hang on to
Yeah.
that are very, very special. And I know guys that have they basically like they blew up. Like an officer did something with their pictures, and the inmate like really, really hurt the officer
Yeah.
because he was pushed to that. You know,
Right.
That's all he has.
So had the officer
Kinda.
maybe
I'm not gonna-
handled his picture.
Right.
No, I know what you. I get
Yeah.
what you're saying there. You're not gonna try to justify necessarily the inmate
I can't.
because what? Yeah. Because what? Yeah. He, you know,
But it's just sad
should
that
the officer not have touched that or scratched that trigger point, whatever the case is.
right. No, I shouldn't have.
Yeah,
You
I've talked to back up what you're saying, you know, and provide some more evidence there and proof is some of the people I've talked to have mentioned coming back to their cell, and their cellie has his family pictures of his sister or his wife
Masturbating on it.
and they're doing
Yes.
something like that,
No.
and that
Yes.
is like that was described to me as you don't do that.
That's a total
Like,
violation.
that's serious. Like you're gonna cause some major problems if you do that. But it wasn't uncommon, and it's also not uncommon for people to request nude or partially nude photos,
Right.
You know, through the mail. For that reason, they could sell them.
Would that be
You can sell it
would
to-
that be
sell it to someone
contraband?
else. Absolutely.
Back to like would you?
Tobacco became contraband in 94, 93, 94. It was before my time.
In Texas.
Texas.
All states did it different.
And
times.
then like pornography became, was it 2001, 2002?
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, so there's no pornography. And then it went from, you could still, there's companies out there profiting off of prisoners, and they'll get bikini shots, and they'll sell like 5 pictures for 75 cents.
What a whole ass
You have-
legitimate company?
You have companies that you can pay for the pictures with stamps. You can go buy stamps off the
in
prison
commissary.
Mail
right?
them in
Yeah.
an envelope
and get
to these people.
get pictures back that you can masturbate on.
What are they doing to the stamps?
Probably reusing them to send you the next picture.
Just cheap currency.
It's stamps, cheap currency. Okay, well, anyways, I didn't
But
get off on that tangent.
I mean, there's 2 million prisoners in the United States.
Oh man,
So it's big money.
that's big money.
Big money. So, but the reality is, to go back to, that was one guy the one story that you heard, that he was disrespecting his cellies, pictures and everything that he stands for, right?
Oh
Right.
yeah, and he described it as not ending well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not with anyone at all, right?
Y'all guys can sit down. You want to sit down? All right. Sorry, we got some guests off camera. My bad.
So what nobody talks about, right, is the Jack Gang.
What's that?
You never heard of the Jack Gang?
The Jack game?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So
Like you stealing
tell us-
shit?
tell
You
us
steal-
about this, Neil.
So some women, right, and everybody likes to be, appreciated or objectified, and some people don't. If you get objectified all the time, then you get old. It gets old, and you're like, I'm a person. I have feelings.
Right.
So some women that start working in prisons, they start getting attention, and they like that attention, right? And some of them realize that, man, these guys are locked up. They don't have any women, so they'll let guys masturbate while looking at them. And when I tell you, like, if I had to guess, it depends on what custody level you're on too.
Sure.
So every unit has its own culture. Every wing or cell block has its own culture, right? And like even on, I'll use the George Beto unit for example, right? Because that's where I did most of my growing up. You got the north side and you got the south side, right? North side is gang infested. That's where all the drugs are at. That's where all the violence is at. Like if you hit when I hit M Block back in 2003, I had to fight 2 dudes. Like
right off the rip.
Didn't matter.
Yeah.
I had to prove myself and fight 2 dudes just to be accepted as a white person, right? Or a wood. And back then, I didn't even know I had a choice. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. We accept it. Because as humans, we gravitate to the path of least resistance, right? And I didn't know, like, if I went back there now, I'd be like, man, y'all guys are retarded, man. What are y'all doing?
Right.
Y'all are sitting here doing these ritualistic heart checks based off what? Like, you don't even know who started it. I do. It started back when the Native Americans that were locked up because they were a minority in prisons had to protect themselves. And they wanted to know that their fellow brothers had their back. So they checked to make sure that they would fight and they wouldn't get scared and turn back and run and leave them high and dry, if a riot kicked off.
Right.
But then every race started implementing these.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what's the crazy part is
That was in the North Block, you said.
yeah, that was north side.
North side.
South side. So basically, everybody has to do like 6 months to a year on north when you get to the unit.
Okay.
And then I signed up for school.
Yep.
And I was working in the kitchen, so they moved me down to
South side.
South side.
No, let me guess. South side's a little bit less restrictions, less.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, like the unconscious pressure that it plays on inmates is if I could stand up right now, I'd do a little skit. But so you're walking down the block on north side, right, and you're tough.
Right.
You got that swag.
Sure.
You got your mask on.
All right.
You get to south side, you pull your pants up where they're supposed to be, and you're like, do.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that obvious.
Yeah.
Really?
The mindset, yes, just where you live, the geographical location where you live in prison, how it affects your mind and your behavior and your actions, and your self-worth.
And for those that don't recognize there's a difference, what happens to them?
So
How do they fare?
they end up being a product of their environment, and most people are a product of their environment. And even though I couldn't change my environment, I could control myself.
Yeah.
And once like that light bulb came on in my head, people started to gravitate towards me. You know what I mean? And we just kind of fed off each other. And like I'd read a good book, and I'd be like, man, check this out. And then like you'd read an idea and you'd give it to me, and we just growed, and we're just trying to learn.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
That concept.
Yeah.
So the people in your classes that you took classes with, was that the same approach? Did you pass a book? Are we all reading the same books? Or did you get together and say, we read the same book, what did you get out of it?
All of the above.
All of the above?
All the above, yeah.
So that was present there as well amongst the education
not just,
community.
I got a good friend of mine. His name's, his writer's name is Thornstein Mayfield. And he's got a few books, and I got another guy. I don't know what his pseudonym is, but we're talking about guys that have very big prison sentences, right? And did
20 plus years.
Yeah, they killed me.
Like they're not getting out.
Maybe eventually, it's possible,
Uh-huh.
but they're gonna have to do 30 or 40 years flat. But through their pain, right? Once they realize like nobody wants to be the bad guy, you know, and once they realize like how big their mistake was, and how much harm and suffering it caused, it turns into a catalyst for change, right? And so you start living your life, you know, on the road of redemption, and it's a very long road, and nobody's perfect. You know, you slip and you fall, but it's always you learn and you get better. You learn and you get better and you progress. And these guys are like, I mean, I look up to them, and like right now, if they said, you know, like if I could do a deal with the state and say, let that guy out. If he messes up, you can put me in prison with him. I would sign it in a heartbeat, because I know these guys' character. But it's man, there's so many good guys in there that like, and you got to realize that you eat with these guys. I went to college with, not just through my associates, but my undergrad and my graduate studies. So we spent countless hours. We're not only in the classroom together, we're on the block together. We go to recreation together. We go to the chow hall together.
Right.
We're showering butt naked every day, talking about how we're going to write this paper.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I know them better than my own family. And if you can actually get a true friendship like that, and let me go ahead and let's define friendship real quick, because it's changed for me over the years, right? So like back in the day, the way I showed my friendship was like, let's go steal some stuff. You know, let's go do something together. Let's go commit some crime, right?
Thick as thieves.
Right. But that's not helping you.
No.
You know what I mean? That's hurting you. But it's still friendship. You know what I mean? So now that the context, I mean, my situation, my understanding's changed. That's not my idea of friendship. So if you're dragging me down, and if you're asking me for money and you're using me, that's not friendship.
Yeah.
You know, you're abusing my kindness, you know? So, but we'll give and we'll give and we'll give. But what I discovered is like, there's two different kinds of people in this world. There's producers and there's parasites. You know what I mean? And you can think in your mind right now in the history of your relationships, you can obviously see the abusers and the people that give.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's a genetic thing. They might find that genetic code later on, and we might be able to just nip it in the bud with a pill.
That science, that area of criminology, biosocial criminology, is developing, but it is way we're a long way from even determining that.
That's almost like science fiction.
Definitely
Almost,
be a while.
I can't help but think
There's a movie that I used to show my research method students, and it has Ray Liotta in it. Oh no, what's his name?
Yeah, that's it.
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta.
Thank you, Ray Liotta.
And I'm horrible with actors' names, and he always gets on me for this.
Yeah.
What's the Green Goblin, the old man?
Oh, Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
And it's called Control. I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but if you ever get a chance, speaking of taking a pill and changing your behaviors, it's a great movie to watch. And I use all the elements of that movie to teach like at least 2 weeks of material in my research methods course on how research methods works. Yeah. What is a placebo? What is a control group? And how to go about that.
A double-blind experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
They do a bunch of experiments with like twins. Whenever they find twins that get separated at birth, and then they find out that they have very similar behaviors, although they grew up in different environments.
They smoke the same cigarettes. They name their cat the same name. Yeah.
I didn't hear about
they
that.
enjoy
Yeah.
the same things. You know what I mean? It's just
And
like
And it makes sense, right? So you're just a genetic copy, carbon copy.
they basically
of
say
each other.
it's about 50-50. You're 50% genetically disposed to be a certain way, and 50% it's your environment.
So there's a lot of research projects that have popped up recently over the past 15 years where they're starting to collect this new data, right? And previously, biosocial research had focused on twin studies. That's kind of where they got their information from.
Interesting.
But now they're starting to branch off and do individual type stuff. We had one at Sam Houston State University run by Dr. Daniel Boisvert.
Yeah.
It was a student sample. And we had students in our dungeon every day. Well, our dungeon was where our offices were for graduate students.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's freaking
Nickname the
torture
dungeon.
going through
Yeah, I
graduate
bet.
school.
Yeah,
Whips and
fucking
chains on the wall, handcuffs.
Why
But
not?
we set up 2 offices, where they would do mouth swabs and the participants would fill out.
What they
all
determine?
different
Was
types.
there any results?
There are
based off of
some.
that?
There are some studies that have been published out of it. I want to say probably at least 5 now, 5 or 6. I'd have to look, but there's a lot
What'd
of
they
potential.
say?
A lot of
What'd they-
potential.
A lot of potential.
I'm not
I
about
got you.
social.
No,
media,
I
right?
understand.
But you can look at people such as Dr. Rick Lewis, Dr. Daniel Boisvert, Dr. Todd Armstrong. Those are kind of the leaders of that project. So if you're ever interested in biosocial research and how it's kind of coming along, go ahead and check out those people's. Just Google their name in Google Scholar.
It makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, because of what's going on in our societies, I promise you right now, like take for instance mass shootings. If you were to say, hey, we know what genetic whatever makeup creates someone who does these mass shootings, I promise you probably have everybody's support in saying, let's find out how to combat that. Is it a pill?
Yeah.
Is it a fucking, do we flag these motherfuckers? Like, what do we do? Because
You probably see a lot more support for abortion.
you think so? Jesus.
If they find out you
your
have that
genetic is
gene,
predisposed.
Nip in the bud, we were
Your
talking
baby's
about it.
genetics say that they might grow up to be a mass shooter. What do you want to do?
Yeah, what do you want to
You
do?
gonna have this
You
baby?
got 2 weeks.
Yeah, dude, no, hell no, that's crazy.
You got 2 weeks.
But
to
but you,
figure
but
this
you
out.
see what I'm saying though? Like, so it's crazy because there is a movie that's about like trying to predict someone doing a crime.
Tom Cruise is in it.
Minority Report.
Minority Report.
Okay?
with
Yes.
Pink Cards.
Okay.
Right.
And
Great movie.
and that sounds, it's a good movie,
Yeah.
but the concept is so far fetched in science fiction. But what he's saying is kind of that same same subject. Is like, can we stop the criminal behavior before it even starts?
But remember-
can we map that shit out and go, hey, dude, you know,
Like Neil mentioned,
nobody's
like,
gonna do
we
this.
talk about family being raised, environment. Having two parents in the household.
It helps.
Having presence of the parent. When after school, there's latchkey kids approaches. There's all these other things that say like mismanagement of your children, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why
can
we have
lead to these.
that's why we have
environmental
CPS.
effects.
I mean, yeah.
But shout out to some of my friends who work for CPS. That takes a strong heart right there,
Ooh, I bet.
and a strong mind.
Ooh, I bet.
Yeah, it would tear my heart out.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
they
have a
all,
hard time. There was a Netflix special about what's that baby? The Netflix special on the young boy that was failed by the CPS system in California.
Oh, Gabriel Fernandez.
Gabriel Fernandez, and
Yeah.
she told me about it. I can't watch it.
Yeah.
I haven't even attempted to watch it because I know I won't be able to stomach that.
No,
That's tough
That
because she described to me just a few of the things that poor boy suffered through, and that was rough.
that type of job takes a special kind of person.
Yeah.
And we need people. We need more people.
But
like
see,
that.
dude, but going through things like that, going through those experiences, right, creates some kind of a PTSD, but also probably creates some kind of a callous, maybe, and not saying that they would ever be dehumanized, well, maybe decent, but to some degree, you know what I mean? You talk to first responders all the time, and they have when they see, because they see death so frequently, that they almost have like this dark humor associated with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't want to take anything away from this person that has passed away. But maybe that's their way of combating that. So people who are really in the trenches, like your friends in CPS, the prison guards, even too,
Law enforcement. Look, it's
a lot. You know what I mean?
it was like the deal with the law enforcement right now, right? Like defund the cops and all this crazy stuff. Like people don't realize how. I mean, I've met a lot of bad cops and I've met a lot of good cops,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But social media focuses on the bad cops,
Right.
and it's horrible. There's no justification for it. Man, I've seen so many unlawful shootings. It rips my heart out. But at the end of the day, these officers, in their mind, it's the same mindset as prison guards. It's me versus them.
Right.
So I'm gonna get them first, and so it causes them to overreact. And then plus, we can go up the chain about training and all this other stuff. But back to Minority Report, no system is perfect because the head guy over Tom Cruise in the movie. Remember how he
was getting framed.
he cheated the system.
Yeah. And it was framing him.
Remember?
Yeah.
Because he got away with murder.
Right.
Right, and Tom Cruise tracked him down. So no system is perfect. So all we can do is like the best of what we have to work with.
Yeah.
Right, and all I'm saying is like I just want to expose and bring to light some of the things that could easily be rectified,
Some of the
easily
inadequacies.
be changed, right?
Yeah.
And the old antiquated ways of thinking, about because 95% of prisoners are going to get out. So how they are treated is going to affect how they treat others, and this it's so serious is that like they're going to be your neighbor. They might be next door to your mom.
Is that
Right.
is that true? 95%.
Yeah.
So listen to this. So
Prisoners-
if 95% of prisoners
95
get out,
get out and
but there's
stay out?
but there's 65 to what'd you say?
Six-
Recidivism.
Okay.
What is that?
They go
You
back in. Yeah, so it's
Well, I guess
It's a trip.
correct me if I'm wrong. What you're trying to say is that at least on average, 95% of the people that you run into in prison are going to be back out on the streets, right?
Right.
So
So-
they could be your neighbor. They could be your boss.
yes.
They
Boss?
could be dating your daughter or son.
If I walk down the street, do I
Right.
ever
So
do I look
what-
like I
so
did
what's the point
21
of-
years?
No.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
No.
So what's the
Nobody
point
knows.
of the treatment that we give these individuals while they're incarcerated? If we know that they can possibly be out, 95% of them are going to be out.
Right,
That's
right.
19 out of 20
Yeah.
are going to
But-
come out and
But
possibly
prison's such
be
a
part
hard
of the
environment.
society
We
you
just got
live
there
in.
saying that. What did you know about prison? Don't drop the soap. We know all the gangs and everything else. Like it's such a it
But it's-
creates tough and hard people.
But
You see what I'm saying?
You're too hard, right? And calloused, right?
Yeah.
To where they don't show their emotions. They don't care. You know what I mean? They're hardened. That's why they call them hardened criminals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's a career criminal, another label, right?
Mhm.
So when I went to prison for murder. That's what it said. So imagine yourself identifying who you are as a murderer. Walk in those shoes. Go tell your mom what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the looks of accusation, like they could not even be there, but somebody that's done something like that is going to project it. And I want to create my own feedback loop in my head, you know what I mean, and get a complex or whatever. But I said all that to say that we all play a role, right? But what is your leader status? What is the number one status? In America, it's all about what do you do for a living. When you meet somebody, hey, how you doing? What do you do for a living?
That's true. That's usually the big
So
conversation.
that's the
starter,
number.
right?
So people can
That's what's important to us.
judge you basically.
Right. But what is really more important?
Who are
You being
as
a husband?
Who
or
are you as
yeah.
a person?
Yeah.
What's your character? Show me your character.
Yeah.
You
But
can't just say that and like, what's my character? I'm a good person. Like you have to show it, right?
Is that when you say you're a Sagittarius?
I
Yeah,
guess.
wouldn't that be an awkward question if someone was like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
my name's Layne. What's your name?"
Thomas.
Thomas. Pleasure to meet you, man. So show me who you are.
What are your qualities?
Yeah, what are your qualities?
Give 'em a
Is this
scenario.
a fucking job interview? You know?
Right.
if you had superpowers, what
like-
would they be?
Okay, but no,
the
but
train
we
track
do.
scenario. Would you kill one person to save a 10? Or
Yeah,
something? It's
all
like-
these ethical questions. But
you
going
do
back
talk
to
about-
your label, you were talking about labels earlier.
That's how you
Right.
identify, though.
My point
When
is
someone
that
says you're a murderer, and that starts repeating in your head,
That's how you identify.
how did you go about changing that when you kept labeled with this word?
There was-
How did you go about reframing your mindset?
so I used to get mad, right? And I might, cuss an officer out here and there. But there was one particular officer, he'd always call us crackheads. Right?
Right.
Like everybody just smokes crack.
Everybody a crackhead. And we're on our way to school, and it used to get me mad, and the dude was like, "Man, don't let that dude bother you." And I was like, "Man, I'm thinking about whooping this dude."
To that point.
He's in the hallway, I could just drag him in the laundry, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because it's like you just get to a point to where it's like you just get tired of it, man. Like you don't have a win. You know, there's not a referee to say, hey, you know, throw a flag on the play. Like you can't do that. You know what I mean? So you feel helpless, right? And you don't have any way out. And so one time this old school said, man, look out, youngster. He goes, man, you're going to school. You got to, when you get out, you're going to get a job. You're going to be making more money than him. Don't let him phase you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Good point, sir.
and so I was like, man, you know what? I was like, yeah, because what I'm doing today is going to affect where I find myself 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Right.
You know, and that's another thing that college gave me was, you know, setting a goal, being goal oriented, you know, and having priorities. Like I like working out and I love reading, but I have to do this job, which is my schooling,
Right.
you know, and then guys would come to help. So I felt obligated to sacrifice, you know, my hobbies or my studies, you know, to help somebody else out. But we kind of got off on the, with the screwdrivers and stuff like that. And just so how did I rephrase it one more time? How did I?
Man, that was like 10 minutes ago. We were talking about essentially.
Yeah,
you were trying to help the guys
right
about with the grievances and everything else, but I put a target on your back. So then I guess in the prison guards,
so how did I identify who I am today? Right. So I basically would ask guys in peer education, and they would come in, and we had 4 tables, and there would be all the whites would sit at one table, all the blacks at another table, all the Hispanics at this table, and there'd be like a leftovers over here, right? And so every day I would say, dang, man, another racist ass class. And they'd all look at each other, and I'd be like, I'm just kidding. I said, we're just a product of our environment. I was like, we go to where we feel comfortable at. If you were raised around blacks, you're more comfortable. So it doesn't mean you're racist. You're just more comfortable around your own people.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Just recognize that they feel the same way. You know, and they feel the same way. And for those that were born on the other side of the tracks, you know, we got terms. I'm not going to use those terms, but we know somebody that fits in with another race because they gel with them. They feel more comfortable around them. You see what I'm saying?
But they're not of that race.
But they're not of that race, but
Yeah.
they're accepted by that race.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at the end of the day, skin color doesn't matter. So I bring that up to say that there's a study, there's not a movie, but a documentary called Eye of the Storm, right? And this teacher took her students and she said, everybody with blue eyes is smarter. It's been proven. Doctors have come out and they found out that people with blue eyes are smarter. So, and they gave them like a little necklace to wear to show that they're better than everybody else. And so the next day, the teacher noticed that the kids started acting cruel to the other kids.
The blue-eyed kids?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they started treating the others inferior, like carry my books, do this. They'd knock something off and say, clean it up.
Come on.
Swear to God.
No, this was before they had like real IRB and ethical standards.
What's
for,
IRB?
for studies? It's Internal Review Board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you do a study from a university or whatever, or if you have an authoritative agency or whatever,
Right.
You'll file your proposal and say these are the safeguards I'm going to put in place
Okay,
to
got it.
protect confidentiality, privacy, things of that nature.
So the teachers noticed the blue-eyed kids treating the other colored-eyed kids.
I know exactly what you're
badly.
talking about.
I can't remember the teacher's
Forget the lady's name though.
But
this was like in black and white television, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the footage it was a long time ago.
And so,
So
but what I'm
happened?
getting at,
Yeah, what happened?
Hey Jermaine, look that one up for us.
what I'm getting at is if we don't control our thoughts control us, right? These kids were given an idea, and it manifested, and it took on a life of its own.
Is that how the Nazis got to power?
And I mean, it's very similar to the Stanford prison experiment. Not the
Yeah.
same context, but very similar notions of
But
perception.
so with that, so they weren't given an idea. They were just giving a role. Either you were going to be a guard,
right?
or you were going to be an inmate.
Ooh, I remember that one. They made a fucking movie about that motherfucker.
So
Yeah, several of them.
So that's why I asked y'all earlier, what do y'all know about prisons? So if you found yourself in that situation, like those college students did,
Yeah.
at Standard, I mean, how would you react? And they had to shut the
They had to shut the experiment down
because it was too cruel. It was too psychologically damaging, and
Zimbardo.
Yep,
That's
Frank
who ran that one.
Frank Zimbardo.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
So check this out. Does that not tend to this thought that that's just naturally how that system plays out? That's just not how naturally a criminal justice system plays out on its own. I know you try to regulate and do all these different things, and we're over here talking about, the criminal justice system is broken. But if left to its own just natural state of being, does it not play out that way?
Yes.
Good guys and bad guys, and then
yes,
and everything else in between.
Once you have authority over somebody, the tendency is to
abuse them.
Abuse
it.
Yeah.
There's abuse.
Power
and
corrupts.
you'll see that in this
Absolute
experiment.
power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
And you'll see it in society with families and relationships and things of that nature. And you go, wow, well, how did it get to this point?
Yeah.
Ordering, a wife ordering her husband around, or vice versa. You're like, what? How did it get to this point?
Yeah.
Well, once that power structure is established, it's very hard to break it.
And you never give up that power once you have it.
Blood
has to be shed. Unfortunately, that's why wars happen.
Yeah, no doubt. But in order to reform, or is there anything to reform in the criminal justice system, or is it just playing out like it's supposed to be?
So right now today,
That's a good question.
Right now today, on all the maximum security units, they are doing heart checks and beating people up so that they can somehow prove that they're a man, right? Which has nothing to do with out here in the world. And so my own experience was like, I was checking one guy in one day, right? And he was about my size, and we started fighting, and he folded up on me, right? And I was like, "Come on, get up." In my mind,
You're doing the checking.
yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh yeah, because that's how it goes. I got duties. To
And he
perform,
didn't want
right?
to fight you. Is that what you mean by he folded
He
up
didn't know
on you?
he didn't know he could say no. He was just doing what he's told.
Okay.
He's just trying to fit in.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know that he can say no. Like if I showed up on Beto today, I'd be like, "Y'all guys are crazy. That's insane. That doesn't prove anything."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At all. And I could say some more choice words, but to explain what I just said. So one time we checked a guy in, and then they checked his paperwork, and come to find out he had a sex case. So even though he passed the physical heart check, he didn't pass the credentials to be on the wood bench. So he had to go somewhere. And he was either gonna ride with somebody, which means he was basically gonna be a slave of another inmate, and have to pay money every month, or he wasn't gonna walk out of the wing on his own 2 feet.
Come on.
Yeah, that's the way it was.
That's just the way it is.
That's the way it is, bro.
See, but listen, I remember, and
And
I was going to ask, I was going to ask you this
Take him
question.
off the unit.
He's gonna fly.
No,
he's
listen.
going to go on a helicopter ride.
And I was going to ask you this question because I know y'all, you were when you at first you were talking about helping people out and other different offenders and this and the other. I wanted to ask, the thought came in my head was like, are certain offenses considered less than or bottom of the barrel, like certain people who committed like you said, like a sex crime?
Yeah.
Those guys, do they maybe everybody doesn't get any sort of sympathy or empathy from the inmates and the guards, but do inmates have like, hey, we don't even like these motherfuckers that are in here with us, and it's these guys that are accused of sex crimes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like kills a child, it's like they're
they're
basically
a child
gonna die.
killer. Like, fuck this guy. There's no rehabilitating him. He can, you know what I'm saying? Does that?
There is a definite pecking order, so to speak, right? But there's like it's just made up rules that people. But it's situational, right? So that guy might be a child molester, but he's 6'5" and weighs 250 pounds, so we're not going to mess with him.
No.
But this little old, you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I guess so.
See, they pick and choose.
There's
Yeah.
exceptions to the
All right,
rules.
so there was exceptions.
There's
based
always
on
exceptions,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And it was insane. But I found myself in this insane situation, and never being through that situation before, you're going to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So me and this guy, it's round one, and he folds up, and I'm like, "Come on, get back up." I gave him a minute, and he wouldn't get back up. And I'm like, come on, man. And at that point, I thought, oh shit, because I'm like, no, get it, like get up, like
please get up,
like you have to get up, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you thought you killed him?
no,
No, he put him in a bad position.
he's gonna be a hoe. He's
Yeah.
gonna be treated like a hoe.
Oh,
Since he wouldn't get up and fight.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was,
Everyone saw that.
bro, that was not my
Yeah.
intention.
Oh shit.
I just thought we were gonna go in there. I did it 100 times.
Yeah.
We were just gonna bang each other up a little bit. We were gonna go right out to the day room, share a cup of coffee, and smoke a cigarette. That was it. That was my agenda.
So what happened to the guy?
So somebody was holding the rundown, and oh man, I'll never forget. He goes, "Oh man, you're a hoe." And so they were like, "What are you gonna do with him, Neil? He's yours." I'm like, "What?" No, I don't want no
Yeah.
parts of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a human being, imagine selling human beings. It happens every day in prison.
Inmate to inmate.
Inmate to inmate. I've seen dudes sold for 10 packs of Bugler, which is smoking tobacco,
Yeah.
and a radio and some. I mean, it's insane.
Is it possible for someone to fight their way out of that position?
Yes.
How does that work?
So yeah,
What
but
does
you
that
got
look like?
so like for instance, so over the years, so many hands change place. Or if you got some guys that like protect guys like that, right, from the actual wolves, but they have to show like they're a wolf too.
You've read Sykes, huh?
So I read too much.
1958.
So basically, like there was guys in there that were monsters, right? They were back when they had creatine and free weights, and these are bad dudes, and they would like take pity on the weak, and they would say, "Hey, dude, like you're with me, but I'm not going to ask anything of you. We're just going to make this look good, but you have to act a certain way. You know what I mean? You can't go out there and act like all you're tough, and you're going to back it up with some, you know, with your fists.
Mm-hmm.
You just stay in your lane, don't bother nobody, and you ain't got nothing to worry about. You know what I mean? But when that big guy left, he left that little dude high and dry. So now the wolves come in, you know. But yeah, there was one situation that there was like a it was a gang. I can't remember which it was. It was one of those Hispanic gangs, Oli Holmes or something like that. And they had this little dude, and the guy was like, he befriended him. Like they were talking one day in the day room, and he's like, man, that's messed up, you know. Them dudes ain't even that tough. And so he basically went and talked to the guy's man, because that's what they call him in prison, right? And worked out a deal with him, and basically bought him and set him free. Yep. Insanity. And it happens every day. But we're supposed to be rehabilitated while we're going through all that,
That's
right?
what I'm saying, man. Like all this stuff that goes down in there. Like we didn't even get you were at one point we were talking about this Jack game, and then we ended up getting off topic.
Yeah.
We didn't even come back to what the Jack game was.
So you have dudes that I mean, it's so barbaric, right?
Yeah.
They demean
Primitive.
themselves. They, you know what I mean? And that is what a bunch of guys are doing. And when they get done doing that, they probably don't even wash their hands, and they go to chow. And they touch the handrails and the doors and everything. So when you start becoming aware of these things, Thomas, you become aware of everything.
Yeah.
And you just start putting everything under the microscope and analyzing it and running it through the mill and seeing what works and what doesn't work, you know? And some guys, I'm not going to put myself out there and try and change them because it's not in the classroom environment, right? And the environment that you put somebody in is very important on how receptive that they're going to be, you know? And just like me being this skin color, somebody might listen to me, or they're more likely to listen to you because you're a little bit darker.
Okay.
Because that's our views of the world.
Wow.
Whoever they trusted as a child.
No, yeah, I get that.
You know what I'm saying? Because in every man, there's still that inner child.
Of course.
And that's usually who I try and talk to. And that inner child, everybody's gone through trauma. Every day somebody's going through struggles. Like when I see all the violence and crimes out there, and I just think, man, if they could only see another human being at the end of the conversation, how great would the world would be?
Sure.
You know, but we don't teach that, and then we have these institutions that become in place and take a power of their own. And the institution becomes more important than the individual. And that's not what it's for. The individuals create the institutions, right?
Right.
And so, like, yeah, I got 4 officers fired, or they got themselves fired, right?
Right.
But the reality is, they did it because I was speaking truth to power. I was exposing them violating policy and procedures, right?
Yes.
And violating inmates' rights. And I got to say inmates' rights because inmates' rights are different than human rights, because we're disenfranchised, right? There's so many things that you can't do from prison. You're a ward of the state, and you're supposed to be protected, right? You're a ward of the state. You can't make money. You're helpless,
right?
But then you're supposed to be able to just get out and conquer the world. You know, they give you a bunch of half truths and sprinkled, but you don't have anything to work with. Nothing to tools that actually help you succeed. Mm-hmm. And I've got guys that called me just the other day and told me that he's fixing to go get some anhydrous to make the best meth in the world, because it's so hard to get a job and keep a job and the struggles. You know what I mean? And I said, say, homeboy, like, it's okay to think that, but don't act on it. And that goes with everybody's beliefs. You can believe anything you want, but when it comes to acting on it, if it harms another person, it should be a hard written rule. You cannot do that. It's not going to be tolerated, and it's not taught to our kids. And so how I began to identify myself was, I just started studying reality in the different systems. And what I discovered is that we live in a nation of laws, right?
Right.
What are those laws based on?
I think Christian beliefs.
Morals.
A lot of Christian morality.
There was laws way before Christianity.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying you're talking about specifically the United States of America.
Right.
I believe their laws
It's
are
spread out.
on a
Yeah,
Christian
Christianity helps
morality.
it spread out a lot more. I mean, it's
Yeah.
10 Commandments. You can't take anything away from them.
What was it? Code of Hammurabi was
Hammurabi, yes.
originally
Yep.
some of the initial do's and don'ts.
Sumerian,
Really?
Sumerian text, but basically, like, if you look in all the different ancient cultures, they came up with rules to live by, and the reason for that is if you lived on a deserted island all by yourself, you wouldn't need one rule.
Just keep yourself alive,
because there's nobody else
there. You're not having to coexist with anyone else.
So it takes a group of people, right?
Right.
So I think like there was a tribe over here and a tribe over here, and one day we were like, look, both of us are losing. We keep fighting each other and fighting over bickering. So why don't we just go ahead and resolve this, right?
Establish some standards here.
Yes. This is your area. This is my area. That's your stick. This is my stick. You know, and if somebody violates that, then we're going to create this code of punishment or conduct or whatever, right?
Okay.
But those are based off of personal rights, right? You're a person, and you have a right to certain things.
Yes.
Right? You have a right to your personal space, right? So, like in prison, I felt like I had a right to my privacy, but I didn't. I felt that I had a right of quiet. I never got any quiet. It's never quiet, ever. Right. You know, the hum of the fans and the hum of the
electricity,
lights. You got these big lights just.
Yeah.
So,
can you sleep without noise, or do you need that?
It's deafening.
Yeah.
You know, with silence.
Silence. Yeah.
Silence is definitely.
It actually roars. It'll roar in my head. It'll get so loud.
That's
I gotta have some kind of background music.
That's wild. Yeah.
And I gotta sleep with a fan on. I gotta have.
Same.
Yeah.
So you don't have these personal rights.
But what I'm getting at is like, so as human beings, we have certain personal rights. So wise elders in the past that were doing the best of what they had to work with came up with a system of laws. So now in today's age, we live in a nation of laws that cover 3 things, right? Life, liberty, and they say pursuit of happiness, but it's property.
Property. Yeah.
Right? Life, liberty, and property.
Okay.
So those 3 rules will keep you out of trouble, and you'll never go to prison if you follow them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just respect everyone's right to that, and you're good to go.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
And if we instilled that in every grade, in every school, then we wouldn't have anything to worry about.
You got a good point there. I mean, that's 3 principles.
That's it.
Can you teach that to a 4th grader?
Can you teach that to somebody that can't read? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Can you teach it to a blind person? Yes, you can. It's very, very simple. And Johnny Ward and I and the rest of the guys, we came up with a curriculum called Influences, right? And it covers everything that influences our behavior, at least to our knowledge back then, because it's about 4 years old now. But I just saw so much suffering and so much ignorance, and when people don't understand and they don't have any rights, and they don't, even when they know how to fight for it, they're still not going to win.
Yeah.
And I just pushed hard, brother. I just started pushing against the system. I just became basically a little insane, like a little manic. And I could read the grievance procedure one time and understand it better than the unit grievance investigator. Right? Because they were denying guys their grievances because it was in excess of 1 of every 7 days. Right? Well, one was a regular grievance, one was a medical grievance. And it says very specifically that it's only 1 in 7 days, but exemptions are medical grievances.
Right.
This woman has been on the unit as the unit grievance investigator for 20 years.
She couldn't make that discernment.
So how many people's you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the lack of due diligence. It's the lack of care. It's the lack of understanding that you can actually change the world if you take your job seriously and just follow the rules. The rules are there.
Yeah.
If you just follow them. And
I don't think there's a lot of motivation to do that though.
no, there's
You know
no.
what I mean?
They get paid
no
the same.
accountability. Yeah.
Well, I
no
mean,
motivation.
you said pay. So pay, from what I understand, to be in the prison system is not great. I mean, just from being even just a regular guard, I don't know what a grievance investigator would make, but I don't think I don't know. Can we look that up? Is it 60, 70K? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, is it a livable wage? You know what I mean?
Probably
Do
not.
you get a raise? Do you get a promotion if you do
Well,
your job well?
Yeah, I think
Well,
wardens.
perhaps,
I think like your assistant wardens. I think you're high 60s, low 70s, but they get a house too. Just so you know.
Okay.
On state property. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And they get to use everything. But there's a lot of benefits to working for the state, not just from that.
I know there's a shortage of prison guards. That's the reason why I bring up the pay thing.
Well,
so maybe prison guards are on a different.
Well, would you want to go work there
No.
with no AC?
No, I don't want to work there at all. That's a hostile environment. I don't want to go there as an inmate, and I sure as hell have no desire to go there, even as someone that would. You know what I mean? But it needs to take. It seems like there needs to be people.
It grew too big. It grew too big, and nobody wants to say that the people that came before us made a mistake, and now we're trying to fix it. You know, like in today's society, all these things, all these problems that we're facing,
Yeah.
it was caused way before. It was just generations ago that somebody came up with that law 30 years ago, and now we need to change it. And that's progress, but we don't. Nobody says that, the state did something wrong. They don't ever admit to doing something wrong. Like even on the grievances, I've got grievances and I run it and I turn them over, but they never admit guilt or wrongness. They always have deniability, and it tells you in the grievance procedure that this is for litigation purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already lying. They're falsifying state documents.
Yeah.
When they say that, they're not being honest to screw people over.
I can't help but
and deny us our rights.
I can't help but think that the motivation to do that is not, for nothing else. They're just like, hey, you're in prison, like you know what I mean? Like this is punishment. What rights do you have? What about your victim's rights? That kind of a thing.
And that's
You
the
know
thing.
what
So
I'm saying?
let's go back to the three. Let's go back to the three, Thomas.
Yeah.
Life, liberty, property.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Are they violating any of those things? They're violating my freedoms.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And when the bottom line is that nobody has the right to punish somebody else, right? Prisons are there to take dangerous individuals out of society to protect society.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
They're not there to punish them while they're there.
That's the punishment.
Just being there.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's people that go through 6 weeks of training from other countries, right? They just hit the soil. 6 weeks later, they're a guard.
What are you talking about?
True story.
What's he talking about?
Nigeria. So yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you're probably a little bit better since you're on the administrative side.
The way it was explained to me by a previous regional director, longtime regional director of TDCJ in numerous regions, is they have a hiring process and a hiring station in Nigeria for individuals who would like to come to America and work under visa in our correctional systems.
Come on, dude.
True
And
story.
why do you think they do that?
True story.
Because nobody over here want to do that shit. So they're literally outsourcing work
Yes.
from other countries to come over here and do that.
In my professional opinion, you need to have you need to be in college, like working on an associate's. It should be part of the curriculum through universities, through higher education, as a process to do that.
To do what?
To work at prisons.
To be a prison guard? Dude,
And
but nobody in
So
that
if you go to-
education level
Listen. I'm
do that.
going to tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I believe in the best in humanity, right? We all have the best and the worst in us,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
But I think good's always going to win in the end, right? And there's been I've lost count of how many situations where inmates come together and protect the officers. If the officer's in the right, inmates will protect them every time, brother. They're not animals.
Right.
But there's always situations that they want to bring up to where, well, look what he did, so it like justifies their actions against them, right? And let me go ahead and explain a little bit better. So, if you treat a man like an animal, you keep poking him with that stick long enough,
Right.
he's gonna act like an animal.
Yeah.
But then the officer that's in the
Respond
wrong is
in
gonna
kind.
feel justified for their cruelty,
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle.
and it's gonna feed their what their belief system is.
See, he is an animal. Look.
Yeah,
I told you.
So I was in the
told
right.
you so.
And
Yeah.
then when the next guard comes in, the next trainee, he's gonna teach him the same way.
Okay.
So you have the rules. You have the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. You have the rule book for the officers,
Right.
and then you have the unwritten rules.
Okay.
And that's what's been running the prisons for a long time.
Is the unwritten rules.
unwritten rules.
And that makes sense.
Right.
Because that even happens even in my
Everywhere.
industry.
Everywhere.
Come on, man. And we're supposed to follow a process and procedures to do X, Y, Z. And
Right.
there's always hey, man, this is what it says to do. This is what we really do. You know, so that's everywhere.
But it's part of
you
the
got people-
culture, and you wouldn't know that or know what those rules are unless you actually investigate it, unless you looked at it, unless you talked to people.
Yeah.
Interestingly, you said unwritten rules.
Yeah.
If any of you guys are bored enough out there that want to read my dissertation, I write one of the 7 themes of what I found through my interviews was 14 unwritten rules of the contraband market of the inmate economy. Things you do and don't do.
So what like some?
So some of them were you were talking about sex offenders earlier, right?
Yeah.
Those people are typically cut off from the contraband market.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to deal with them. You are not allowed to buy anything from them or sell them anything.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
Some of them got pretty in depth in terms of the gang culture. So say for instance, if me and you are on the same block, right, and you are Mexican Mafia. And I'm
Why I
Aryan,
gotta be Mexican
and
Mafia, man?
I'm Aryan Brotherhood.
Why I gotta be Mexican
I don't know.
man?
Say you're a Muslim. Who cares? Yeah, but just for argument's sake,
Yeah.
proving my point or expressing my point. So you're Mexican Mafia, I'm Aryan Brotherhood, right? And you're bringing in heroin,
Okay.
right? You got to hook up bringing in heroin, and I find out, oh shit, I can get some heroin in as well. So I got someone bringing heroin as well.
Okay.
I need to first clear that with you, and say, hey man, I'm gonna bring in some heroin. So not only that, there's an economic approach which is illegal. It's called price fixing. So I'm gonna say, okay, so for a 10th, how much are you charging?
Yeah.
I'm gonna charge the same thing.
Okay.
And it's a respect thing. It's all based upon respect.
Yeah.
You know, if we're gonna both sell the same thing, and you can actually tell me no, you're not gonna bring heroin in here. Get that on another pod. Get it on another unit.
A whole nother block, whatever.
You go make your money somewhere else. I got this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where the politicking comes into play between gangs. There is that much power and influence that comes from gangs that it comes down to small stuff like that.
I feel like that's the shit that got him there in the first place, though. What you gonna say? It's that criminal mentality.
Well, here's the thing.
So
But you have to understand
perpetuating
all of those rules, and it's not like someone just wrote them down on a piece of paper. And
No,
was
I
like,
get that.
Hey man, it's your first day in fucking
That's why I
prison. Here you
said-
go.
That's why I
This is
said
shit
it's
you
the
need to
criminal.
follow.
That's why I said it's a
That's
criminal
not the way it
mentality.
works.
You see what I mean?
But here's the thing. Like we're taught like that stove is hot, don't touch it.
Yeah.
And after we found it that one time, we have that reference in our minds, right? So when somebody tells us to do something, we're going to do it unquestioning. We're not going to question it. So when you find yourself in a prison environment, bro, you're just going to roll with the punches and learn as much as you can and see how it is. You're not going to question.
See, that's
You're
why.
just- it's-
And that's why I feel
Yeah.
like any sort of real, true prison reform is an uphill battle. Like to try to do and enact any change.
Essentially, you're trying to change a culture,
Yes.
Oh, dude, good fucking luck, right?
right? That's tell me the last time that happened.
That's
We
what
tried
I'm
it for
saying.
20 years in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And guess what? We walked away
I'm sorry, what happened?
No, nothing. I don't know.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, see,
because
And
it's
it-
not possible.
It's bred
Yeah.
into the
And-
almost. I mean, not genetics, but at this point, kind of right.
It's saturated. It's saturated.
so, but there's got to be something. There has to be some kind of. So
Reform-
where do you start?
Reform
Where
our
do you start?
schools, brother. Reform our schools.
Get to the children.
We know we can. We know, like you have, like they say, don't worry about what you don't have any control over. Of focus on what you
Can
can.
control
We can help
the children.
reform education,
Yeah.
public education,
Okay, all right.
hands down. The Texas Lottery, they collected like $8 billion
Okay.
this
Yes.
year for public education. No, they collected that much, and over $2 billion went to public education.
All right.
But I can't tell
Right.
because they're still going straight to prison. You know what
That
I mean?
you said that pipeline, that
Yeah.
from schools to prison
Right.
pipeline.
And that is a largely minority based content approach,
Right.
Or perspective. Some people call it a theory.
Yeah.
But if it's proven over and over and over, is it still a theory?
Correct. And then once you have an expectation of that, well, then you're just playing a role. You know, a lot of people grow up, they idolize their older cousins or brothers who went to prison. So they're already walking in that direction.
Yeah.
Because
and that goes back to the movies we watch, right?
It's-
And the
it's-
Shawshank and the
it's
Oz
almost-
that Cody mentioned.
it's almost like a right.
It's a glorification.
It's a right of manhood.
Shawshank wasn't a
You know?
glorification. Shawshank was like a. Anyways, I mean.
Oh yeah, wrong.
But maybe
yeah. That
maybe
was a bad
American Me. American Me might have maybe.
right.
Or-
Oz, or I see it in my own students, right?
Yeah.
They're like, I want to be a CSI investigator, or I want to be a behavioral analyst for the FBI,
Yeah.
and I'm going. Nobody told you what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Like, there's like maybe 2 handfuls of behavior analysts for the FBI out there.
What would they do? They watch the TV
CSI.
show.
It's called the CSI effect.
Oh,
They
God.
call it the CSI
Are you
effect.
serious?
Yes. And these students watch this stuff, and they watch Law and Order, and they watch CSI, and they watch
that
fill
looks
in the blank
cool.
Criminal Minds and all these other things. And the next thing you know, they're getting a criminal justice degree in something that they think is attainable
So for all the wrong
With-
reasons.
with a very small chance of actually obtaining their ultimate goal, because the glorification of
This
criminal
whole
justice,
this whole industry.
this industry in,
Yeah,
in general,
yeah, that-
right? Yeah. We see it all the time.
Really.
And me and Jessica actually were having this conversation. She was like, "How do you fix that? What do you do?"
Yeah.
And that's, and we were talking about advising. Like, you have an advisor when you go to college. and
No,
they tell you
right.
what
Yeah.
classes to take.
Counselor. Yeah.
And it's like, well, universities are not set up in a way to fully explain the trajectory.
Because there's a
Because they're
curriculum.
talking about
They
money
probably want
here.
your money. Yeah. It sounds
Right.
like they probably just want your money, dude.
Right.
I don't care what you study. Just
And if
pay
someone
my
goes,
shit.
if someone came up to an advisor and the advisor had like a real job to do, based upon what we're suggesting they should do,
Yeah.
the advisor would go, "Oh, you want to be a behavioral analyst?
No.
Go to psychology. Get out of here. I'm gonna turn you on to a different department."
Yeah.
Do you think the dean of that department, of the criminal justice department, is going to like that?
No. Hey, man, we need that
not.
money, man. We
Hey,
got our
man,
budgets to make.
We need to get our numbers.
Yeah.
You
What about numbers?
And I don't know, sorry to get off topic, but
No.
that is the nature of
And
university. I saw it happen in front of me.
And-
I've dealt with it as a
yeah.
professor, and I deal with it as an advisor now, because that's part of my job. I have to advise students as well.
So you just shined a light on that, right? And so that is why other countries that offer free education have little teeny tiny prison populations with a 20% recidivism rate.
Come on.
Yeah. Look at Norway, Sweden.
I know, but a lot of people
And guess
say,
how long it takes for those correctional officers to go through school?
Oh,
Upwards to 2 years.
What?
Yep, in some of those countries over there.
So go figure.
Upwards to 2 years.
Go figure, because what I got through saying was when they were saying, you know, what your opinion was on someone who's going to be in the prison system, they have to have at least an associate's degree or something.
right.
I was saying, in art, like I didn't realize this when you said it got too big. That makes sense.
Way too big.
The talent pool.
Yes.
What I'm saying for that is
Yes.
not going to be that.
It was like the
it's
brain.
not going to be
yeah.
that population you're looking for.
We don't have a talent pool anymore. We have a global, like, come work for us.
And see, here's
crew.
and here's another thing too. Is like I want to bring to light is that I've met a lot of Nigerian guards. Some of them I got along with. Some of them I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of what tribe they came from or what region, or if it's just a character conflict or whatever.
Sure.
But some of them guys are the coolest, laid back. Like they're not. Like they don't even want to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like don't put me in your business. You know.
They have their own motivation for being there. Obviously.
But for the most part, there's they can barely speak English, barely.
But
right?
see, these people's motivation is not to come and rehabilitate
But-
the population of Texas.
That's what I'm saying.
Prisoners. They're there
They're
to
warm
get
body.
they're there to
Right.
get their freaking visa and stuff.
But-
So I mean, you know,
but they're taught like when you're walking to chow or something, like you might have like a couple hundred inmates in the hallway, and the officers always scream and yell, "No talking in the hallway! No talking in the." I mean, they're yelling, "No talking in the hallway!" Right?
yeah.
And we're just like having a conversation like this, like, "Hey, you know, da 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 da," and you can get put out on Front Street. You can get cussed out. You can get a case, all from this unwritten rule. In the handbook, it says you're allowed to talk in the hallway. The only place you're not allowed to talk is in the commissary line when you're waiting to purchase store, right?
And that's to keep
It
down.
even-
Is that they
it-
keep some sort of.
It
What they
even
think
says it even
influence.
states that you're allowed to talk in the chow hall.
Mm.
But when officers are in the chow hall, they'll tell you to shut up, eat your food, and get the hell out.
Mhm.
Because they're using arbitrary rules. They're just enforcing their own idea of punishment, right?
Punishing people who
The-
are already in punishment to begin with.
But you see how unfair that is, and how unjust, and how, I mean, like when they put screwdrivers in my cell, and they were tearing up my cell and throwing my toothbrush on the ground and stomping on my stuff.
Yeah.
You got to understand that I was an educated man, but you got to also understand that I was put in a situation that I had no control over, right? And I made a decision to do the right thing. But I can tell you that the thought processes of doing the wrong thing went through my mind several times, right?
Yeah.
Almost to the point to where this guy right here,
Yeah.
see that guy?
Oh yeah.
This is Major Juan Jackson, right? He was a major on Ramsey 1 for 10 years. And I'm pretty sure in their policies and procedures, they move wardens around like every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Because once you're in a state of power for too long, like you get too much power. You know what I mean? You can start pulling individuals like puppet strings and getting them to do what you want to do. And so not only did this guy have screwdrivers planted in my cell, but when he got to the unit, he started denying inmates their craft shop privileges, right? And the craft shop is the only place that inmates in TDC can actually earn money, right? So they're allowed to piddle. So they can make leather goods. They can make wallets.
Yeah.
They can make candles.
That's where we got the koozie from, right?
You know,
we
yeah.
just recently.
Yeah, I did
purchased that.
leather work, and I make custom belt buckles, and all the guys in there were very helpful. They showed me exactly what I needed to buy. Like, don't waste your money on this. This is what you do. So basically, I owned a small business for like 14 years while I was in prison, right? And out of a 3,500 man unit, there was less than 100 stations open to allow that privilege. You know what I mean? So I was given something that I really, really appreciated, and that changed my behavior too. I'm not going to act stupid and
lose that right
and
lose
throw it
that
away
privilege.
Throw it
Yeah.
away.
No. Learn my manhood.
Wow.
Because the most important thing to me at that time was my mama that needed me, and she's sending me money. She's sacrificing doing without because of me. You know what I mean? So it was very, very important for me to be able to earn money and take some of that burden off that I already gave her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it meant everything.
Okay.
And so when I signed up for my bachelor's degree on Ramsey 1 unit, I get there, and they tell me that there's a 2-year waiting list for the craft shop. And I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, I've already earned the privilege. What am I waiting for? And the unwritten rules of Major Jackson, where it doesn't matter. You still got to wait. Well, I start asking the other guys, and some of them were still waiting at 4 years after they already have a degree.
Oh, wow.
And they're not allowed in the craft shop.
This guy, it's all based on his discretion.
So listen, like I'm focusing on school and doing my own thing. Like, so I start reading policy and procedure. I read it one time, and I look at it and I see, to deny an offender a privilege is mistreatment of offender without due cause. So if an inmate doesn't do anything wrong, if he doesn't get a disciplinary case, you can't take that away from him. You're mistreating him.
Right.
It's right there, black and white. So I wrote my very first grievance in 2014. After 14 years of being incarcerated, I wrote my very first grievance, and I was the first of 50 inmates to get put in that craft shop. 50. That's how many open stations there were. So these people are sitting up there getting paid good money with benefits, with a house, and they're denying over 50 human beings their right to make money and support themselves while they're in prison, while they're paying their own money, their family's money, to go through college. But
I mean, they have the resource there, the workshop.
they just weren't they just weren't doing their job.
Yeah.
And everybody's scared to write a grievance and cause waves because of retaliation. But I was at the point to where, like, I didn't care. Like, my mom was worth more than my own life.
But that's what happened
And
to you.
so-
You got retaliated against, didn't
Yes.
you? Not? Yeah.
But, and there was a lot of the guys were afraid because they were like, man, they're going to shut the craft shop down. No, they can't. They have to have it. You know what I mean? It's in their policy book. Now, some units don't have craft shops. The newer style units,
Yeah.
for whatever reasons, I'm not sure exactly if it's a number thing, but it's like grandfathered in on the Ramsey unit, and probably because they don't have day rooms on Ramsey unit, which is also ties into Major Jackson. But yeah, so Major Jackson was over the craft shop when I did that, so it made him look bad, right? I basically exposed that he's not doing his job right.
Right.
But who was working the craft shops? Was it like was it like a bunch of people and there was no more spaces available, or
No, so
how'd that work?
no, there was it's insane. It's the master-slave relationship that goes back to slavery, right? You have officers that are in power. You got one craft shop boss, right? And then you've got a couple of her clerks and like 4 or 5 other golden boys. They were going up to the craft shop every day and piddling and hanging out and watching TV and having a good old time, while all these stations are just empty, and all the guys' property is sitting in the property room on the unit,
Yeah.
collecting dust. You know, to me that's just like this.
It was wasted space. It sounds like it wasn't being used to its intended use. The craft shop wasn't being used.
I mean,
to
it's like
its
crimes
intended use.
against humanity, because, I mean, these people, like, you're robbing all of their power and control. Excuse me, all their power and control away from them. You know what I mean? They earn this privilege, and then you steal it unjustly.
Yeah.
And then when they just say, "Hey, will you please follow your policies? I didn't do anything wrong."
Right.
They make you wait 40 days to answer the first grievance, which they deny, and then they get an extension on the second grievance. So next thing you know, 180 days have passed, when all that had to be done was for just one state official to go, let's just follow our own policy and put them in there. When you're not recognized as a human being, brother, it is very damaging on the human soul.
Yeah.
And it will cause you to go out and get that power and control back from somebody else that's weaker than you.
Right.
You see what I mean?
No.
That's the cycle of violence.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier. You were talking about how just being mistreated within prison makes you feel,
I get
a certain
angry.
way, and then makes you react a certain way.
Yeah.
You're trying to do the right thing and follow the right path, but you have all these distractions and all these different, extra outside stimulus that's telling you, man, let me swing on this motherfucker. Because I'm pretty sure if you hit,
just revert back to your animal instinct and just
and then like they said, he's poking you and going, look, see, told you,
But
this
I'm-
motherfucker was
I mean,
an
we can-
animal,
I mean, there was a guy on the boot factory that had an altercation with an officer. He wasn't going to be able to win, so he cut the officer's throat.
God damn.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how serious it is. Like I almost walked up into Major Jackson's office and cut his head off. Like, that's how serious it got, brother. And I wasn't even going to be, like, angry because I was at the point to where, like, my life is meaning. Like, what is the meaning of my life if I don't have a voice, no power, and control? So the only thing that I could do was make a statement. And I was going to go in there and cut his head off, bathe in his blood, and tell them why I did it.
The fuck?
Seriously. I thought it 1,000 times.
But you couldn't sit there and be like, I'm doing this for prison rights.
And this is
But you were desperate enough to make that point.
Like,
yes,
holy
to
shit.
create change. But I didn't want to do it, and thank God I didn't do it.
Glad you didn't do it.
Yeah.
But they, like, forced me to just stay on that narrow path and do the right thing. But hate's a strong word, brother. But that guy right there, he used to he listened to inmates' phone calls. He'd withhold their letters.
Yeah.
He worked with the GIs, the gang intelligence officers. I mean, he was corrupt through and through. When they came and arrested him on the unit, and they went to his office, they found hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of confiscated commissary that had been stolen from inmates.
What did he?
That he was sitting in there eating and watching VHS tapes, watching movies while the state's paying him to do a job that he doesn't do.
What did he end up getting arrested for?
Like conspiring to plant screwdrivers into my cell.
So wait, what he did to you, that got him hemmed up?
Yes.
That's huge. I didn't realize.
So did
that.
he have to do any time for that, or was he
No,
easily brushed off with probation?
So here's the thing, like, don't drop the soap, right?
Yeah.
Nobody cares about prisoners. Nobody cares about. They don't give a shit. Even looking at this podcast, they're still not going to be able to identify. But a lot of people have people that are loved ones that are locked up, and that's really like who I'm trying to reach, because that's only people that can actually hear me. Like, if people that don't know are more than likely not going to care, and that's really, really sad. And they're going to pay the consequences later on, because if it doesn't change, there's just going to be more victims and more victims in society.
When those people come
It's going to keep getting worse and worse. It's never going to get better on its own without change.
Right.
But so yes, so Major Jackson gave an order to Lieutenant Thompson, who went down to Sergeant Wolf, who told a CO, Gallegos. And Gallegos, I think he was a youngster. He's like 24, 25 years old, right? And what was it? Gallegos said that he was in fear of his life. Like, he had to get me or they were going to get him.
Dude, well, hang on. Can
So
you
it's a
show
gang.
that?
It's a gang mentality.
Can you show that
Yeah.
thing there? Because that just reminded me of the article. This apparently made the news.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I remember reading this, Neil.
Yeah.
Like years and years and years.
Where's the headline?
Years ago.
What does it say? This is the Houston Chronicle.
right there.
It says it right here. Ex-sergeant says he planted evidence in inmate cell in fear. This was December 6, 2019 when this was posted.
Yeah.
In the
And
Houston
this
Chronicle.
happened in 18, 17?
Was it 8? Man, I've been through a
It
lot.
says
bro.
It's just been a
I,
while, though.
No, it says 2018, but it says,
Yeah.
no, excuse me, 2019. It says,
No.
I was in fear of my own life, ex-sergeant Marcus Gallegos told attorneys when he was questioned under oath as part of a lawsuit.
Yeah.
It's not a game in there. Oh, wow. This is.
I had
So this is well after the grievance.
So-
This is under probably deposition at the lawyer's office.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, whatever story they want to make up to justify what they did, at the end of the day, there is no justification for it, because
Well-
I was only asking for what I had earned. I was only asking for my rights to be recognized and be given fair treatment, and stop mistreating me. Like, please stop mistreating.
This was for you to have access to the shop, the workshop. That's what all this was about.
So it was
because
that-
you filed that first grievance.
And there was also, so one of my friends was he was a janitor, and he was in the major's office, and there was an email laying on the desk, and he got the email, and it was from Major Jackson to Captain Gilbert, who only got demoted. And this is insanity, y'all. This is how, I mean, the fox can't guard the hen house, right? So when you ask them to correct themselves, they're correcting themselves. They really don't hold each other accountable. There's really not really any real punishment because they got probation, right? And it was probably deferred adjudicated probation to where if they do their 4 years, he can actually start working back at TDC.
I was going to say, did he get fired? I imagine they get fired.
Hear me out, brother.
Yeah.
He can get his job back in TDC.
Damn.
And he'll straight off the jump, he'll be a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Since he was a major when he got fired.
Is that what this guy did, though?
Yeah.
Or has it been enough time where he's back?
It's getting close. It's getting close. So did I really get justice?
Probably not. Not if he gets recycled back into the same shit and is able to do and inflict the same.
But did he learn his lesson
to everyone? I don't know.
That's the question.
No,
right?
what level of punishment does it take to learn your lesson?
I believe in second chances, but somebody like that, there's a difference between should he be given that another chance to be put in that same position, right? Like so if you let out a sex offender, are you going to let him babysit your kids?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Put a child
are you going to leave him alone? Are you going to let him?
Yeah.
You know, go to Disneyland with this. No, you're not going to.
So that's wild that they allow them the chance or the opportunity to get back into that same profession. They should like almost lose their ability to do that.
Completely. Like if you're an officer, see, there's different rules in different departments. That's what I'm not understanding. Like, there's certain things you can violate, and like you can never be a practitioner again.
Right.
But then when it comes to the criminal justice system, they like.
But is it back to the fact that there's not a whole lot of people kicking down the door to be prison guards?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
look. I mean, if everybody would get together like they did for Brittany Griner, and let's let out a friggin', you know what I'm saying, a friggin' arms dealer, then this would change overnight, which is insane to me. But our Marines still in Russian prison. That's what I'm getting at. Like, where's the focus at? Why isn't the focus here? You know, it's been on the news before. Yeah. Because
I think part of the reason, just to answer your quick question, why aren't we seeing that here?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't have experience with the criminal justice system,
and they don't care about it.
Unless you have a cousin, a brother, maybe a dad or mom who's been through it. And like you mentioned earlier, you didn't even know your father was in prison.
No.
Yeah. So no knowledge about the criminal justice system to you. And most people, they simply don't care because, well, you offended somebody. You've created an offense, right? And you must be punished for that offense. And whatever happens in that punishment, most people just don't care.
Was it par for the course then?
Yeah.
Or what?
Yeah.
You're in prison.
Yeah. They just don't. They
don't drop the soap.
And things that aren't in your immediate, universe, your little cosm, don't affect you. You don't,
right?
Unless it's somebody you actually know.
We live in a bubble.
Things that happen far away don't affect us.
I actually got into criminal justice through my previous career, but when I started honing in and focusing a lot of my research on corrections was because of one of my dear friends.
No.
And he spent a lot of time in and out. And when we would sit down and talk and chill, and he would tell me some stories, and I'm going, what? And this is during my undergrad. I'm going, are you serious? Are you serious? It's not that I didn't believe him. It was just so
shocking.
Heinous, the things that he was expressing, and the stories he was telling, and that was kind of my push to go in and start studying corrections.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot of experience with the criminal justice system. Growing up, I didn't know how it worked.
It's like
it's
a soap opera with Shanks.
You go to jail, and hopefully you don't get in too much more trouble.
That's what it is. A soap opera with Shanks.
Soap opera with Shanks.
Yeah, you got inmates getting married on the rec yard, and I can't wait for the first.
You still ain't talked about the Jack
I
game.
can't. I can't wait for the first gay couple to get married
in prison
on the same unit, and then what do you mean we can't be cellies?
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. And then maybe that'll push the door open for people to get conjugal visits that are locked up. Because as it stands now, not only are you locked up away from your, your loved ones, but you're also cut off from.
I thought you were allowed conjugal visits.
That's one of the deprivations of prison.
No.
Going back to Sykes.
Yeah.
Is that just like a Texas thing then? Because where's this concept of conjugal visits then?
It's not in Texas. I can promise you that.
I think there are a few states that still do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are.
Furloughs used to be a big thing until I forgot his name.
You talking about Bush? Where Bush
yeah,
had that
yeah.
deal?
When he basically, who was it? Gore? Was it Gore?
No, man.
No, who was Bush running against?
I can't remember.
It was the older Bush.
Was it Clinton? And it was older Bush.
It was the older Bush, and the Perot, was it Ross Perot?
I don't
know.
But
I don't remember. Anyway,
Yeah, with the big ears.
The issue was
Willie
this guy out. Yeah, Willie
Mays Hayes. No, I'm just kidding.
Willie something.
We'll look it up later.
Yeah.
Long story short,
That shit up right now.
the guy who was running for president against Bush supported it and pushed for a furlough to be able to get out. Well, this guy was in there, I think, for murder or rape or one of the other, maybe both, and he got out. They let him out on furlough, to go, and he ended up killing somebody. Yeah. And it completely smeared the other candidate who was running against Bush, and it was used as a big old look at that.
Willie Horton.
They've also let out inmates that let the parole board know, like, if you let me out, I'm going to kill people, and and I'll look it up if I have to, but I mean that's a true story, but I mean that's the insanity of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that just because of overpopulation or what?
No, I think I don't know if it was parole or if it was long way, but either way, they should have definitely had a psych eval, and then they could have had him civilly committed. But instead, he told them exactly what he was going to do. They let him out, and he did it. And it's like, y'all are idiots.
Yeah. It should it happen? Should it not happen? What bad apple spoils the bunch, right?
Every time
with the Willie Horton incident. Yeah. Neil, you talked about the craft shop and how much that meant to you and how much time you spent there. And this podcast is called
Talk of All Trades.
Talk of All Trades. Would you consider what you did in the craft shop a trade, and tell us about it?
I think the craft shop should be allowed. I mean, I think inmates should be allowed access equally across the entire state. To gain access, it shouldn't be just 100 inmates for every 3,500. That's a very, very small percentage, right? And how it helped me is because you had to, with your own money, you had to buy material, figure out how to make stuff, and then sell it to officers, right? So if you mess up, there's natural consequences to that, right? And so you're doing a little bit of math, you're doing a little bit of this. If you make over $400, you're supposed to do your taxes, which they don't give us the paperwork to properly do that. So they're committing tax fraud, or their negligence is causing us to commit tax fraud as inmates.
Is it like woodworking?
Yeah, they got. So let me try to think. You got artists, and they can do with pencil, airbrush, oils. You have woodworkers, you have leather workers, metal workers. They implemented candles, and then there was a thing about the glass, because you can't read it, detect it in a detector.
Like blowing glass?
Like a metal detector. So you could get a piece of glass and stab somebody with it.
Are you talking about windows or like blowing glass?
No, like candles.
Oh, okay.
Like the glass jars.
Gotcha.
Right, and so there was also, so security is always an issue, right? But at the end of the day, you could be in there. Everybody could be wearing bubble wrap, and you're not going to stop somebody from using something to hurt somebody. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's pictures. You got these fan motors. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody wants to do something, you can't stop it.
Exactly.
So all you're doing is you're giving us toothbrushes that are this long, so that we don't stab anybody with a toothbrush. So to reach the back of your mouth, you gotta, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's probably worse for your hygiene, sticking your fingers in your mouth.
Also, because of their laziness, you don't have pillows. Like, it's against the rules to have a pillow in prison. Like, you will get a disciplinary case
for soap and pillows
for making a pillow. So that they call it a pillow that's actually built into the mattress, but it's just a little bitty hump, right? It's
you can't throw your arm under that thing,
Man, no. Listen,
so no one will suffocate somebody?
I didn't sleep on a mattress for 17 years. I just slept on the steel and on a wool blanket. But I used a dictionary as a pillow. I take my dictionary and then take my state clothes and fold them up, and that's what I use for a pillow. Okay. And when I did that, I told myself, it's all about that knowledge. Yeah. To remind myself every single day. Yeah. You know,
Just absorb it through osmosis.
Yeah, grateful for it. Yeah.
What did you do in the craft shop?
Yeah, what was it? What was your trade?
I started off doing billfolds, Bible covers,
billfolds?
belts. Yeah, and because it was the cheapest. Like I wasn't artistic at all. Like I'm not gonna do art, but you can get an art card. I think you can start off with. You have to have like $35 on your books, your account, and then for leather it's like 75, and then it's wood was 100, and I think metal's the most expensive, right? So when you send in a request form, which is called an I-60, to the craft shop supervisor, you just put, I would like to be placed on the waiting list for a craft card under art, and then you would wait sometimes a year and a half, 2.5 years. The original wait's very, very long, and in that time, if you get one disciplinary case, you get kicked off the list. You've got to start all over again. So just like with education, if you get a case when you're in education, you get kicked out of education and have to wait a whole year before you get back into education, which to me is stupid.
It's counterintuitive.
Because
Right.
because my thing is like, if I'm walking down the hallway and you don't like me for whatever reason, or you're an HMHR patient, right? You can just come up and hit me in the head, and I'm going to get a fighting case.
Even if you're just the victim,
Yes.
you didn't swing back, you didn't defend yourself, you did nothing.
Same thing in public schools right now.
Oh, that's true.
It's
Even if you didn't swing back, I mean,
Right.
both of you are going down. You
Yeah.
know, what, ISS or
it's
Brown School or whatever they call it.
Whatever it is.
But it's the mindset. It's all about punishment for the sake of punishment. It doesn't matter what the truth is. It's just about punishment, right? And it goes back to the slave days. And to point that home, let's talk about Texas correctional industries, right?
Oh, there you go.
So we're talking about prisons for profit. So you have TDCJ, then you have TDCJ CID division, then you got another arm or branch is the office, the OIG, the Office of Inspector General, which is like the law enforcement branch.
Like the
of
Texas
gray
Rangers of
suits.
prison.
But these aren't these aren't true law enforcement officers. These started about 20 years ago, and they were TDC guards. They just handpicked a few of them and said, hey, y'all go do this. Y'all police each other now. So we're talking about guys that work together, play together, go hunting, fishing, and they're
Right.
supposed to be
Policing each other.
right.
Yeah.
Come on, like it's not going to work.
Right.
So let me just read this real quick, because this is Texas Correctional Industries is a department within the Manufacturing, Agribusiness, and Logistics Division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. TCI was established in 1963 with the passage of Senate Bill 338, the Prison Made Goods Act. TCI manufactures goods and provides services for sale on a for-profit basis to city, county, state, federal agencies, public schools, public and private institutions of higher education, public hospitals, and political subdivisions.
That's weird. Political subdivisions. What the hell is that?
No, what I'm getting at is we make goods that the city, the county, the state, federal agencies, they all profit off of slave labor.
But what's the goods you're making? Is it like the leather goods
So
you guys are doing in
it's
the craft
everything
shop,
from
or-
mattresses to. So can I interject?
Yes,
real quick?
sir. Yeah.
So at Sam Houston, I stayed during my undergrad. I stayed in the on-campus dorm.
Yeah.
It was more of an apartment type thing. It wasn't really dormy, but it was still considered on campus, right? And so the mattress I slept on that they provided, the bed frame,
Yeah.
and the springs that they provided,
They all came from the prison system.
our coffee table
Yeah.
in the living room, and our couches and our double chairs,
Yeah.
all made in TDCJ.
How do you know? How do you know?
They were.
I'm not saying how do you know.
Oh,
I'm
how do
sorry.
I know?
Yeah. How did you know?
They told
Is
us.
it marked? Oh, it's
And you had there's a stamp. There's a burn.
I'm not saying it doesn't
there's
happen.
a burn
I'm just-
stamp, right?
It's a TCI
Yeah.
with a star.
what?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Absolutely. And even in the criminal justice building that I'd spent way too many years in.
Yeah.
The furniture there was most of the furniture there was made in
Inmates.
prison. Yeah. Now the thing about TCI
Yeah.
is, so there was a law passed many years ago that allowed or that disallowed inmate made goods to be sold interstate.
So Texas couldn't sell some shit to Tennessee.
Texas couldn't sell to Louisiana.
Yeah,
Louisiana
yeah,
couldn't sell to Texas.
Okay, got it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, what is that? What kind of incentive is that? If that rule didn't exist, well, shit, man, I'm Louisiana. You're Texas. I'm going to get more inmates.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to get way more inmates than you so I can pump out more stuff and sell it to your state than you can sell to mine.
Damn.
Not just that,
Right?
man. Look, they used to actually rent inmates out
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
to go build buildings and parks and like if you own a construction company, right?
Right.
You could call up warden such and such and be like, "Hey, man, I need 20 inmates," and they'll go down the road and work the what out of them, and then drop them off at the end of the day. Free labor. They don't get paid anything.
Now, big question: does this lessen their sentence at all? Does it
No.
take away any
No.
time off their sentence?
No.
What's the benefit then? I guess
You can
punishment.
punishment. You can clean
It's
toilets
punishment.
No, I'm saying for the prisoner
or
to
work in the
agree
field.
to this.
Doesn't matter.
Or they have no choice.
Your job's your job.
What do you mean agree to it?
That's what I'm saying. Like they say, hey, you're gonna go build such and such.
That's
why. Whatever.
That's why I love you, Thomas, for making that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can say an inmate has a choice, but at the end of the day, it's really not a choice. Like to go work in the fields or to have a work in laundry or any type of job, because to refuse work, they're going to put you in seg.
You'll get the shoe.
And they're going to take all your property, your radio. You're not going to have a book. The only thing you can have is a Bible. And they'll probably leave you in there for about 3 days before they bring you your toothbrush and toothpaste. You know what I mean?
Right.
You will get aired out and punished. And then your food comes through a slot, and you have no control over what happens to your food before it gets. I mean, it's Trust me.
Get you.
Trust me.
So
You
there's
don't
plenty of incentive for a prisoner to
Yes.
say, dude, all right, I'm
Yes.
going. I'll go
Yeah.
work wherever the fuck you tell me to go do.
Yeah.
You raised a really good point.
Yeah.
You raised a really good point about
But
punishment in that area.
but what I'm saying is that
Jesus Christ.
renting out slaves to other slave owners versus renting out inmates to other plantations
Is
or
apples to apples?
to even today making inmates make goods for TCI. It's the same system. It's just changing hands. And so my thing is this is like we're talking about rehabilitation. You want to teach guys, let's say it says right here that TCI is committed to providing marketable job skills training to incarcerated inmates, providing quality training for staff and inmates, manufacturing quality products, and providing products and services that meet customer requirements. So they say that, right? But this is what I see, is that these guys are being forced to do a job that they might or might not want to do. There's not any incentives because they're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And then the skills that they do learn, why aren't they hooking them up with construction jobs when they get out?
Get out.
They
Right.
don't.
Right, there's no follow up.
job
But
placement or
what
anything?
you just read right there, is there anything in that is not true that they do not do? So, and I'm playing devil's advocate.
Oh, no,
right?
you're right. So let's see. TCI's statutory objectives are found in Texas Government Code 497.002 and are to provide work program participants with marketable job skills. I guess it gives you some marketable job skills.
But if no one's gonna hire you, what the fuck does that matter? You know what I mean?
Help reduce recidivism.
Yeah.
You got to get that job first,
get
though.
that-
Now
job first.
that's tough, right? To
That's
help
tough.
help reduce, I think, is key.
And reduce department costs by providing products and services to TCJ and other eligible entities on a for-profit basis.
I'm
So,
gonna tell you right now, that's probably
but
the
let me-
biggest driver right
let me-
there.
let
That
me-
last one.
That last one.
but let me break you
No,
down.
Lower costs.
Let me tell you how. Let me tell you how bad it gets. So not only are inmates, that we make the mattresses, the sheets, the shirts, the shorts, everything they sell out of commissary, right?
Yeah.
So these guys are going and making shirts, not getting paid, and then when they go to commissary, they have to purchase that
Buy their
shirt
own
for
shirts.
$7 per shirt with their family's money.
Damn. That's just like a slap in the face.
No
man.
employee discount.
So they're
Oh, and God
You know-
forbid you get a hole in that shirt and sew it up. Now it's contraband.
yes, and they'll take it.
No.
Or you cut the sleeves off, they'll take it.
Yeah. Any alteration
Yeah.
of
Maybe, I mean, cutting the sleeves off is fine.
What-
It doesn't matter. That's fucking.
But the
nitpicking.
bottom
I'm
line
nitpicking.
is they've created an artificial environment that has nothing to do
Yeah.
with making it out here, man.
Yeah.
With here you work, you get paid.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So
Yeah.
if you really want to rehabilitate somebody, you should create an environment that can mimic society as closely as possible.
Yeah.
And I would say for, the guys in power now, without conjugal visits, but I'm for conjugal visits. You know what I mean? I mean, there has to be some compromise. But if you want to keep certain punishments in place, that's fine. But it's all about our habits, right? So successful people have obviously successful habits, right? And they pass it down to their children. That's why the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. See, unsuccessful people pass down unsuccessful habits. See what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you don't get paid in the contraband black market, everything becomes a hustle, right? So you can't buy bleach off commissary. They don't sell bleach. They don't give you bleach. So you have to steal the bleach from the state. They don't pay you anyways, and then you go and you sell it on the wings, right? So what kind of habit is that producing?
Still that criminal mentality.
That it's okay to steal.
That criminal behavior.
Yes, and it becomes normal.
Right.
And in the food industry, like when you're in the chow hall, if you'll go in early and you'll make some sandwiches and you'll bag them up and then you'll sell them and make money. If you're on the serving line, you'll give somebody 2 scoops because they're gonna flick you a stamp, and you grab it while the law's not looking. When I tell you that everything is for sale, everything is for sale.
It's everything's a hustle.
Yep. The books that we read, some guys read books and they exchange books or sell them instead of just give them away.
Yeah.
And at major shakedowns, which this really kind of bothers me, right? That if your name and number's not inside the book, they confiscate it, right? And then they just throw it away. So why don't they build a program to where
sounds like a Nazi to me.
Yeah, they're burning.
At
Yeah,
least they
they're
didn't
burning
burn
books,
it, right?
But there's so much waste. And one more thing, like if the taxpayers knew how much money was being wasted, it would be insane. When I was on Beto, I was in maintenance for about 7 years, and it's around the end of the budget, and they're trying to figure out how to spend the rest of the budget. The maintenance supervisors are, right? And so they decided to go to the tool room, take out brand new Craftsman tools, right, that hadn't even been used, and get a plasma torch and cut them up, right? And Craftsman's got a lifetime warranty, just so you know.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about they had like these meters and like some stuff, like some high dollar stuff. I didn't even know what it was. Just to spend the rest of the money so that they would get the same amount the following year. And this happens on every unit. It happened every year.
Fiscal year.
Every department, every unit.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Not to discount what you're saying, but that also happens in corporations. It also happens in our military.
Yeah. Yes.
I knew a gentleman in college, and he was in a particular branch of the military, and he gave me some scraps, and I'm thinking, well, this looks fine. What's wrong with this? And it was I can't go too far into detail.
Yeah, please don't.
He said, "Oh, it was damaged."
Yep.
And I said, "Oh, doesn't look really damaged to me." And he goes, "It was damaged, Layne. I want to give this to you."
Wow, nice.
I was like, but it happens.
Yeah.
It happens all the time in corporations, with the military. Anytime you have to be accountable for something, right? And you have a budget to maintain and grow the next year. You're right. If it happens in universities too. If you don't use it, you lose it. Right, the next year you don't get that.
And I understand that, but can't they just explain at the end of it, like if something major happens, like the air conditioning, not the air conditioning, but they do have AC over the
Forced
infirmary.
air.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like some of the major like power supplies and stuff like that, like if that's like $1 million to fix that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they should at least have a little cushion on their budget, whether they spend it or not. That's how easy this problem could be fixed.
Yep.
Instead of just
It's a policy change. That's all it is.
that's it. instead of cutting up perfectly good tools
Yeah.
and making taxpayers pay for it, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And every unit, they have a metal fab. They've got the furniture factory. I mean, it just happens. It happens everywhere. Like the amount of waste is just. But once again, what are you teaching? What are you teaching the inmates?
Yeah.
bad habits. You're teaching them bad habits.
If they didn't already have them, right?
Right. So, and these are people from authority.
Yep.
So you're going to ride with that authority, and
I can't help but think that just from what I've heard you say throughout this conversation is that if we are going to enact any sort of prison reform, it's going to at least start with a couple of things, but at least one of them being don't punish the prisoners any further within this system they're already being punished for. So don't be taken and detracting from their rights. Again, that's going to be I think that's a hard one for people to digest.
You got to put an answer on the end of that, right? So those that are in power think that they're punishing inmates.
Right.
When in actuality, they're punishing society.
Okay.
And they're punishing themselves.
In the end, with that 95% coming back.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's the reality, right? And I think that there are those in power that haven't even read all the policies. They don't know the procedures. They might not be 100% aware or guilty of what's going on, right? But I see crimes against humanity, and I see that at the same token, there's a lot of guys that are locked up that, like, they really have like low IQs. You know what I mean? And they're walking around on medications, and they should be somewhere else besides prison. But they put them in prison anyways.
Well, prison is since the 60s has become our psych wards. We used to have psych wards.
Yeah.
We used to have mental institutions where we would send people who could not, or for whatever reason, engage in society and be productive members of society.
Right.
And once that money was pooled and those institutions were shut down, prison became our essential mental institutions. Yeah. And not saying everyone in prison has a mental incapacity.
Out of sight, out of mind. That's why all the prisons are way out in the boondocks.
Why do you think over 60% of Texas TDCJ's budget goes to health care?
Oh,
literally.
Oh, thank you.
More than half the money that TDCJ requests from the state every 2 years.
Yeah.
Goes to health care.
Because of the pills that these inmates are on, or
partially that, and then partially.
It gets deep.
Well, it gets a lot. It gets a lot further than that. So, right, say I have I go to jail and I go to prison. I got 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And I have a bad tooth, right? Well, if I have a bad tooth, then that leads to an infection, right? And that infection, so you can see the development of a physical ailment costing more and more money as it is ignored, right? Continuously ignored. Right. Periodontist disease, right, leads to heart disease, right, and heart failure.
And can I say one thing? Can I come in for 1 second? Inmates have to pay a copay to get medical treatment.
No shit.
When they don't get paid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and there's a lot of indigent guys, right? Like the indigents, they'll write off, but if the state can get money out of your family, they're going to make you pay that copay before you get medical treatment. When the taxpayers, when our families have already paid the taxes that are supposed to take care of us anyways. You know what I mean?
Double dipping again.
Everything, the phone, the commissary.
Look at
Securus.
Securus, yeah, they were the ones that ran the phone systems for a while.
Yeah.
Once they really needed to start recording conversations that were happening on prison phones, Securus came in, and it was a private company. And dude, they
stole like it was like $5 million. They were overcharging inmates.
I hate to say it, but they were literally raping the wallets.
Yes.
Of not the inmates, because they don't have any money. The families of the inmates, so the inmate can call their family.
Damn.
I mean, I forget the rates.
It was like $5 for 15 minutes.
Yeah, like ridiculous, and it wasn't maybe 6 or
like
7 years ago where they finally said, "Okay, guys, this is
and the reception
evident exploitation. Like you cannot do this
price
anymore."
gouging,
and so they made him. So they made him.
There was no other competition,
right?
Either. I mean, they were the guys that did it. Yeah.
But my thing is that without consequences, there can be no change, right? And on that situation, they took like the $5 million or whatever it was, and they put it in a general revenue fund that anybody can use. When they should have given it back to the families. You know what I mean? It's like that wasn't. It's all about profit, and it's all about greed. And on the medical situation, they push pills like nobody's business. If you go, we got a pill for that. We got, and so just real quick, so if you're going to go get your blood pressure taken, right?
Yes.
What should you do?
What do you mean?
What's the procedure?
They put the blood pressure cuff on you, I guess, and then
As soon as you walk into the door.
Yeah.
No, you need to sit down for a second.
Yes, sir. See, so that's the crazy part.
see what you
So
mean.
so you get through running the gambit, in this hallway with everybody, and then you gotta it's a fight. To go anywhere is a fight. And once you get there,
Your blood pressure's elevated.
yes,
Hey,
Yes.
here's some lisinopril, right?
and then
You
they
don't even
get
have high blood pressure.
all right, and not only on top of that, they don't follow their procedures right. So there's so many people that are on medication that they shouldn't even be on, so that they're getting money out of that. And then instead of giving you a cheap pill like naproxen, that's 2 cents a pill, they're going to give you ibuprofen, which is 8 cents a pill. I mean, I've when you started talking, because it's kind of on the back burner, right? And then and here's the so it's very, very difficult when you go on medical chain, right? You have to pack up all your stuff. You got to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. You got to sit on a bus. You got to sit handcuffed to another person that you never met before. There's a bathroom on the bus, and if you've ever tried to pee while you're handcuffed to another man or take a dump, it's not cool, bro.
I was gonna imagine that's kind of difficult.
You know what I'm saying? Like when you're driving, you're on the bus hitting all the bumps, and I mean it's so you prepare for it, right? Like you don't eat, you don't drink water, you go on a fast, and it's something to do with the scheduling, right? So the doctors, what doctors are going to be there on what days, and so it goes to the units, and then they put everybody on the bus, and then you go from wherever you're at to Galveston. Now, if you're up there in Amarillo, man, it's 2 days. It's 2 days worth of driving to get all the way down there, right? Handcuffed in a bus that's not air conditioned.
They'll send you from Amarillo to Galveston.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now they have Texas Tech, right? So that was like over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
But they would drive you all the way across Texas to UTMB in Galveston.
All right, so that's a tough travel.
So here's the thing, and this happened to me before, right?
Yeah.
So I get there, and they tell me, come over here and wait in this room. I sit there all day, and I don't see a doctor. Back to the unit.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So what happens in that 2 day period?
So-
do they stop you at a unit or something, and you do overnight or what?
You go back to the unit. And they have empty beds there at Galveston, but they don't want to do the work to assign you to that unit for another day. It's crazy. So they're wasting the gas money, but to me, it's very, very traumatic on somebody to go through that.
Yeah, especially if you're looking for the treatment that you need.
When you're used to living in a 6x9 box, that's your little cozy, that's your little happy place, right? That's your little fortress of solitude. Like there's all this madness out there, I can't control it, but you know what I mean? It's very, very disruptive, and and a lot of these guys are like, they're older. I mean, they're in pain. It's very, very hard for me to see that. It's very, very difficult. And then you got guys that have cancer. They're going through radiation, and they're going back, to and from. And it's an issue. But at the end of the day, the doctors are more likely to let inmates run game on them, right? And they will shut them up just by giving them drugs. And then the inmates will go back on the wing and they'll sell the drugs as contraband. And it's every day. Like, why do you need ibuprofen for? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, you take 2 of them, but they get a whole pack at a time. It's like 50 pills. And they'll sell them to somebody who'll crush them up and get high. And then they also have, what do y'all call it? K2 or Tucci, or what are they calling that synthetic now?
Spice or K2 is what TDCJ refers to it as.
So it was...
TDCJ, every other state, and the feds. That is becoming a serious, serious issue out there.
They are killing themselves, like flopping like fish on the ground. When I was on Ferguson, they were literally walking around like zombies. And at first, the guards would take them to lock up, but there were so many happening, they just gave up, and they quit locking them up. They just drag them back in their cell. I mean, what do you do? So
the drug test for synthetic cannabinoids, like you're talking about, are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
It is a whole different panel test. And there's so many different cannabinoids out there that you can't possibly account for all of them. It's kind of like someone who got poisoned, right? and you have suspect that they got poisoned. Well, you can do a toxicology. You can run toxicology, but you have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, there's not an ultimate flat out panel of toxicology to like tell me what's in you. You know, and then you run the analysis and boom, and it picks out one of the million things you said could possibly poison you. That's not the way toxicology works.
Right. And then don't forget they kept changing the chemical to stay ahead of the laws. Because remember they kept outlawing it and making it illegal. So they would tweak it a little bit and say, oh, well, you're not talking about this drug now.
Right.
And
right.
They kept morphing it.
That was like almost over 10 plus
chemical
years ago,
analog or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had one. Its stuff was called Deaf. For real.
Deaf or like death?
Well, it was like death, but they say Deaf.
Uh.
And it hit the block right, and these guys were like, "Man, I want some of that." Like they were like just
That murder.
and they're
Give
just
me that
they're,
Deaf.
but they're just trying to escape, man. They're just trying to escape from the situation because they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the understanding to deal with the problem. You know, you gotta know what you're dealing with before you can solve it.
Yeah.
You know,
And you just remind me again of and it's not a shameless plug. This is part of the conversation, but some of the things I found through my research was contraband and getting high and having things wheeling and dealing. You know, making if it is 33 cents, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked some of these participants, you know, what do you get out of this contraband market? And I broke it into three different. Their responses were broken into three different sections. I coded them in three different ways. One of them was entertainment and escape.
Yeah.
It's something to do.
Pass the
makes sense.
time.
You know, you're not. If I'm trying to sell you a salt packet,
Yeah.
right? I'm not trying to kill you. And if you're interested in a salt packet, at least I'm not killing him.
Right.
Right. So it's a form of entertainment, socialization. You get to meet people,
Talk
around,
interact.
and there was a couple of people that mentioned
It also gives
it
you
being a thrill
Yeah, a little,
of like
little
getting
rush.
away with getting high, you know, sneaking off in the corner or
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a part of
but
most cultures
major entertainment,
since
a major form of entertainment.
since civilization. Like we go to work, we come home, crack open a cold beer. It's the American way.
Right.
I mean,
Ain't no different inside.
yeah.
The
And
last.
some people mentioned the escape.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to quote it verbatim, but it was something to this nature.
Yeah.
And this individual, this participant had said, you know, if I can sit back and drink me a glass of wine, prison wine, and smoke a joint with my headphones on,
Yeah.
you know, I'm no longer in prison for the time being.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And it gave them like something to grab onto from the outside.
Sure.
And that's another deprivation of prison. when
But
you go
prison
back
is
to
waiting.
psychs.
But prison's waiting for you, bro. As soon as you come back, it's gonna be here. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You know what?
Because it gets out of hand. Because it gets out of hand, and they think that they're escaping, but you're never going. It's not a real escape. You're not. You're just not dealing. You're not dealing with reality.
No.
Yeah.
But people do that. People do that
Everybody. That's
on the outside.
self-medication.
Free.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Hey,
that,
listen.
that reminds me of and a lot of people have said this that I've talked to that get released out of Huntsville Walls Unit, and it may have been, I don't know if this is a cultural thing passed down, you know, generationally at the Golden Gates, you know, when you get released. But one of the last things that a correctional officer has told numerous people I've talked to is, we're like Motel 6.
Yeah.
We'll keep the light on for you.
Yes, sir.
In other words, we'll see you again.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, final 10 minutes if that's cool.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah,
we wrap
yeah.
this up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, my bladder's. Yeah, I'll try and hold.
No, but I mean, we want to recap this conversation. What are the things we want to, reiterate or highlight on what's most important to you, Neil? You know, when it comes to the Texas criminal justice system.
Right now, there's a situation going on with the cells on Ramsey 1, and Ruiz versus Estelle. Ruiz fought. Well, they used his name. It was a collection of writ writers that put his name on it, but it just basically it tackled all the inhumane cruelties that inmates were being forced to suffer at the hands of the state of Texas, right? And he won, like, amazingly. And they went through there and they changed everything. Like, you used to be able to Like if you laid it down in the fields, it was like, boss, it's too hot, I can't work. They just drag you over there and put you in an ant pile and see if you were faking. And guys have died every year out there in the fields as slaves working, right?
Right.
That's very serious.
Yes, sir.
But the changes that he made, they're not being respected today by those that are in power, right? And one of them is, so Ramsey's an old unit. There are no day rooms, right? And I'm not going to get real technical with it, but there's a run. So you basically have a hallway, right? So you got access to your cells. You got 1 row, 2 row, and then just a long hallway. Other units have a big square day room. So if you're not in your cells, you go down the hallway and into the day room, and that's where you hang out until you go to chow or education or anywhere else. Well, since they made a deal because of Ruiz that they would leave the doors open at all times. So when I got there, I had my lock and my cellie had his lock. So the door, we would have both our locks like this. So if I came home, I would unlock my lock and open the door. And then I could lock it back. And then when he came, he could unlock his lock and open the door. Right? And this is just a lock that you could push real hard and it's going to break. They're plastic locks.
Yeah.
But so Major Jackson decided to destroy everybody's locks, first of all. He didn't give anybody a chance to keep their locks. He destroyed their property, threw them away, and started closing the doors. Well, by federal law, you have to provide one inmate 40 square feet of unobstructed floor space, right? And the cells on Ramsey 1 aren't big enough for 2 inmates, but they have 2 mates in them anyways, right? So you're in a very, very confined space. You have to turn sideways just to get between the toilet and the bunks. It's very, very tiny, and it's very, very maddening because it used to be quiet. When I first got there, it was very, very quiet because officers weren't coming by every hour on the hour opening and closing the doors and slamming them. Well, then they changed it and they started slamming the doors. So it was very, very disruptive, and it's against the law. Like right now, I've had a buddy, he's been fighting them for 5 years, man. He's in court fighting them when it's in black and white. So why does TDC force inmates to do everything they possibly can and use their families' just money to get support to fight their own rules that they're supposed to be following anyways?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I had a friend named Daniel Bales, which I graduated with him. I walked with him, and he tried to commit suicide after I left. And this is he's an awesome artist. He's a great guy, highly intellectual. His word usage is like you've never met anybody like this. This guy, the magic that he can weave with words, and I know the site. It's very, very damaging, bro. Like you can't focus on anything. And anybody listening, like look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And this is the point. When you have to worry about, food, clothing, shelter, you know what I mean, your basic necessities, you don't have time to think about anything else. And in prison, when you're getting hit with distractions, you can't focus on anything. You can't focus on yourself. You know what I mean? You're just being bombarded, and it'll drive somebody insane. And then you get desensitized. You know what I mean? You're so turned upside down that you don't know what's real and what's not real. And you lived in this artificial reality for so long, you forget to relate to the world. So when I would go, when you go out there and talk to your people, you're talking 2 different languages. Yeah. And even my fiance now, she'll be like, "What?" Because I'll say something that I picked up from the penitentiary.
Just jargon
it's a disconnect. So my thing is that we have to start working on our connections with other people and realize that we all influence each other, we all affect each other, and to harm one is to harm all. But when you try and help somebody, you can't help but help yourself. And in this capitalistic society where it's money over doing the right thing, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard uphill battle all the way, man. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's like from prison to purpose. Let's give guys a purpose, and they might achieve it. But if you treat them like an animal, subhuman with no rights, then don't be surprised when they go out there and commit crime. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's what we want to highlight.
What about the education in the prisons? Do you think there should be mandatory education?
I mean, if I was running things, you couldn't get out of prison without a GED.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they let people go out without GEDs.
GED.
Kyle Unit, which is a private facility, and I hate to sidetrack, they didn't even have a GED teacher. And they were sending guys in class, and they would just sit in class and get counted to get the money, like as if they were getting trained.
Wow.
I've got the dates and everything, bro.
Oh, I believe it.
Like, crank it up.
I mean, I believe it.
Because it really made me mad. But
yeah.
as far as education goes, there's not enough classrooms to get everybody in school. There's just not. Because, I mean, you have 3,500 guys on a unit that has maybe, I don't know, 14, 16 classrooms. And some of those are like computer technologies or they have electronics course. I mean, you can't use their classrooms.
I mean, think about it this way. We have, I think, the most recent numbers I remember were right around 100,000 inmates in TDCJ. And we have, I think, just shy of 100 prisons now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 100,000, do the math. I mean, how are you possibly going to educate? And that's the thing is people a lot of times go, oh, well, Switzerland and, you know, Norway and this and that. Wait, we're talking, this is not apples to apples.
Yeah, no.
You know, we can, even if people had the money to make it happen, it's not going to be the same.
And there's some cities that wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for that prison being built there in the first place.
That's the industry. That's what people in free society do for a living.
Because
they go work in the prisons,
right? And that's where the term prison industrial complex comes into play.
Wild.
Is we have this situation, we have so many people. What do we do with it? How can we make money off of it while still skirting by the skin of our teeth as administrators, you know, and say we're actually doing good, but we're actually rehabilitating.
So Layne,
they're fooling themselves.
Let me try to ask you in this final minute then, Layne, the last question will go to you. Is prison system reform achievable? Is it even something that can be done?
I can't answer that question without asking you a question. What do you mean reform?
I mean, that's what I've always heard is, you know, let's reform the criminal justice system. That's
just changing it, but to what degree?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, is it attainable? Because
can I answer that?
Utopian?
Yeah, go ahead.
My definition of reform is seeing and treating a human being with respect and like having respect for their person.
Start there.
No.
So start there.
And that's reform.
Start there.
That's true reform.
Yeah. So start there.
Yeah.
My answer would be, you said, is it possible to?
Is it achievable,
attainable? Yes, in that if culture is changeable.
Yeah.
If they're down with it, it can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
You can change the policies, you can change this, that, and the other. The culture is still there.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can't change the culture, redefine reform.
Okay.
So not anytime soon, basically.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
I mean, I have hope. I have hope. You know, I have some friends that work for TDCJ, and they're doing some really, really good work, positive stuff.
Well, we need to change.
But the pendulum swings slowly.
Well, the first thing is to change the 13th Amendment and abolish slavery and actually pay inmates. Because then they would have to.
That's in the right direction.
Then they would have to really, you know what I mean?
I mean, you talk about self-efficacy and social
autonomy,
social capital.
Yeah.
Major components of those, if you look at them statistically, is gainful employment.
Is it right? Is it fair? Is it just? Those are the principles that guide my life, right? So, is it right? Is it fair? Is it just? Is it fair to make somebody work and not pay them? No, it's neither of those three things. So how is it just? How is it being reformative? It's not. So you know what I mean? You're not going to get the results that you think because it's erroneous to begin with.
Right.
You have unrealistic expectations if you think you can treat somebody like a slave and they come out like a good person.
Yeah.
Got you.
It's not going to happen.
Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So I was thinking, if it's okay with you, Layne, I'll put a link to your dissertation in the bio down below or whatever?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
you can find it through SHSU's library, their dissertation database. So Sam Houston State University, just go to their website, or you can plug it down there.
And then
I wish I would have had a chance to talk a little bit to Neil more about his trade through metal and leather work, and because there's no such thing as a shameless plug on a podcast, right?
Right. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to like
No, I mean,
promote or anything?
no, I mean, y'all are gonna see me around. I got some irons in the fire, and about, promoting awareness, because that's, society's not really aware of what's going on. They're too busy unplugging and educating themselves and taking pills and watching, to actually focus on real problems.
Oh, the stuff that's happening.
But as above, so below, right? But no, I just appreciate y'all, having me, and I learned some things. And I think, if we all keep pushing, we might not be able to change the world, but we can change those that are around us.
Yeah.
And that's something.
We can make an effect.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool.
Appreciate
Well,
it,
thanks
guys.
again for having us here, Cody
Yes, sir.
and Thomas. I enjoyed it, and maybe we'll do this again some other time.
Yes, sir.
No doubt.
Till next time. See ya.
Peace.
I feel like